Welcome to Wickedshizuku's Reviews, bringing you a southern perspective on books, movies, music, and much, much more. Stick around for a while, you just might hear something wicked. Well, hello everyone. I have quite a lineup and I haven't watched any of these yet, so you'll be getting first time reaction on this. So we will jump right into it. I have about maybe 15, 16 videos lined up, so okay. And all of these are either through The Blaze, Fox News, Fox Business. There's a few history mini docs in here that I have lined up as well. Some other news things that came up in my feed today. So we shall get to it after I rearrange this. Come on. Yep, that'll do. Alright. And here we go. Oh, wait a second. You are ketchup if you're going to be baby tomatoes.
Today, the experts say your child can now be gender free. Yes, I'm serious. Planned Parenthood said they need to shut down things to stand Joe Biden's fighting on it because things are going really well, right? Right? We're all going to things. Welcome to the News and White Matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, and today, although you over there at home are likely feeling the squeeze of inflation, higher gas prices, way more expensive groceries, spending hundreds of dollars per month than you did just 2 years ago, and just a general feeling of economic insecurity, our dementia-riddled leader, Joe Biden, is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, inexplicably taking a victory lap on, of all things, his economic record. Watch.
The pay for low-wage workers has grown at the fastest rate in 2 decades. Wages are growing faster than inflation.
Yeah, that's actually not true. By the way, wages are down 3% and everything sucks, but all right, whatever you say, Joe. And it isn't just Biden gaslighting you on the economic instability of the country. His Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, is here to tell you that not only, you may not know this, guys, not only are your finances stable, you're actually financially comfortable here in 2023. 75% of Americans believe the economy is in poor condition, and maybe that's because, again, even though inflation rates have come down, they are still paying more. 63% of people in this poll disapprove of how President Biden is handling the economy. What do you say, Secretary Yellen, to the clear majority of Americans who simply do not believe that the administration is helping them?
Well, Americans know best, I think, about their own personal finances. And it is important to recognize that when they're asked, how are they personally doing, over 70% of Americans say...
Oh, hold on.
That they're very comfortable with their
You can do it,
situation.
YouTube.
So they seem to perceive the economy as a whole as doing less well than they are personally. But most Americans feel good about their own economic situation.
Okay, well, in other completely unrelated news, a new report shows that the homeless population in the country has experienced its largest spike on record this year, with a roughly 11% increase, marking the largest jump in over 15 years of tracked data. According to the Wall Street Journal, the surge in homelessness is primarily due to rising housing costs and rent rising over 15% nationally since the pandemic, with the national median rent price at $2,029. And that, my friends, is the real Bidenomics. Here to discuss this and more, we have Eric Gillette, Blaze TV contributor and host. Blaze TV contributor and founder and owner of Reverse Comic, also host of For Canon's Sake. But honestly, he's got too many titles, and I get confused sometimes. Also joining us, Jason Buttrell, who I'm really mad at because I don't want to spoil anything, but he already taped Glenn's show for tonight, and Just saying, he dressed way nicer for Glenn show than
I got out of that fast.
he literally, he just before this, he already had it on, and he took it off to come on my show. He put on like his dirty clothes to come on the News and Why It Matters.
I'm not gonna say I used your dressing room to do that, but not saying.
So I just like the audacity of this administration to continue to lie and pretend like, no, come on, Americans are doing great. They love the state of the country these days. They're not at all worried about their stocks, about their 401k, about their retirement investments, about, I don't know, just the US dollar itself. Americans love the way things are going. I really don't think that's the case.
All right, I don't know how much time I got to take care of this issue of inflation, but let's be very clear. Biden sucks. He has done absolutely everything that he could, let's say, in his power as well as his party to exacerbate the issue that already existed. But I'm going to just give you guys some perspective here as far as what has happened, definitely when they legitimized this fraud in 2020, roughly around that time, whatever you want to call it, the pandemic, whatever that is, and all of the money that was fluctuating around that time. Between 2020 and 2022, you're talking on an upward of, let's say this, most of the money supply have been printed during that window of time, okay? That's where the inflation comes, right? And then you had simultaneously the least economic activity that this country may have ever seen in modern history because people weren't working because, well, in a lot of cases, it was illegal for them to do so. So you're printing money out the wazoo, the Fed in combination with the Treasury, and you have low economic activity during that period of time. And because crack smokers seem to think that you can just print money, it's just out of thin air and there's going to be absolutely no consequences. And then on top of the printing of the money, they're giving away this fake money like it's going out of style. And the Republicans were in on it, including Donald Trump's crackhead ass. I'm sorry I have to go out there. Yes, y'all can be mad at me and start screaming and screeching. He was in on it too. I'm so sick of this damn issue of inflation and economic issues. And we sit there and gripe at the table all damn long. And it's like, oh, just Biden. The Democrats and all the Republicans were in on it too. And you can sit up there and say, well, he had his hands tied. Stop bitching about the problem then. That's why it's an issue. It's a combination of a few different things, but it's not that complicated to understand where this comes from. If you want to have this issue be resolved, the harsh reality is there's nothing that the president can do. What they can do is get the hell out of the way and shut up. That's it. Stop these massive spending bills that they continue to just say, all right, we don't have the money. The government, look at this one. The government, every single year, the federal government, the Congress, if you will, sits here and negotiates and have these discussions about how much money, fiscal budgets and all that stuff. And they every single year, and the Republicans vote for it every single time, they know that they're not going to be able to account for the money. They know. It's called deficit spending. They know it every single year. And it piles, of course, that money goes into the debt. They understand that and still, hey, here's some bills. Here, let's pass some, sign them, let's go. And then everybody's like, oh, I don't know why the dollar keeps devalue. What do you mean you don't know? It's right there and it's so obvious. But because we sit here and play this blame game, it never gets resolved. And that's what's so frustrating because for me, it's not that difficult to understand why inflation is a problem. You don't need to be an economist to understand it, but you have to accept the harsh realities. And that is this welfare statism, that has to go, right? There's this all this spending efforts, that has to go. The rent loan business, that has to go. That if you want your money to actually be worth a damn, that all has to go. And at this rate and at this trajectory, even if you're just sitting on the money, it's being devalued actively and you're losing money just by saving. And that doesn't even make sense, but that's the truth.
So, Jason, I want to get your thoughts, but Eric, you mentioned the deficit and the debt. I don't know what you're talking about because Biden said that he is the first one to cut the federal debt by quite a large amount of money. Watch.
And unlike the last president, my first 2 years in office, even with all we've done, I'm the first one to cut the federal debt by $1,700 billion. $1,700 billion cut.
No.
Yes, I'm sure that's true.
Go to the debt clock right now.
Right.
Yeah, it just keeps moving.
Right. Yes.
But it doesn't matter everything you just said because of monetary theory. Eric, what's amazing to me is how these experts continue to tell us that there's no big deal. None of this is not an issue to anyone. Meanwhile, you have regular people that are suffering. I mean, legitimately suffering on this. That viral song comes to mind. That guy, I can't remember his name. That rich man north of Richmond.
Yeah.
Those are the voices that absolutely terrify. The experts and elites at the top terrifies them because that is, I think, fairly called a ballad. A true American ballad at the time we live in right now. It really is. People are, working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, making bullcrap money off of it. What they maybe could have supported their families, a few years ago, well, going back several years ago, but now because inflation is so high, as you pointed out, people can't buy normal things anymore. The money does not do anything for people anymore. But did you see how the mainstream media started attacking that guy? And they called him a plant. They called him they didn't buy it. They're like, oh, he's like a conservative plant. They even tried to associate him with QAnon. And the only thing they were pointing out was, look, we are suffering. They don't want you to know that. That message cannot get out in the public that people are suffering. There was another viral video that I can't remember, it was more on TikTok or whatever. But did y'all see that where people were? It was just individual accounts of how they live day to day. And some people were crying in the videos. They're like, I can't afford to support my family. Like, I can't feed them, go to work for as many hours as I'm working, and then with whatever money was left over, pay for rent. I can't do it. It was account after account after account after account. That is how the majority of Americans feel. And it's absolutely insulting to see people like Yellen say, oh, actually, it's like 75% of the country. They feel perfectly fine. Who are you talking to? The people just in Washington, D.C.? I'm sure they agree with you. They're right. I mean, there's no business in Washington, D.C. except for lawyers and lobbyists. That's it. And they're making a ton off of our backs.
Right. Well, and that's where, the homelessness comes into play with the rise of housing costs and everything else. And
Yeah, so I have a point about this. For the millennials that are my age and everything, why didn't y'all go ahead and have your kids? I'm just wondering, why didn't y'all go ahead and have your kids? Why are y'all starting now? Because, it must seem absolutely backwards and backwoods that I had my kids at 19 and 20 years old. Before I could even legally drink, I already had 2 babies. And there were a lot of girls in my high school class that had already had kids before they even graduated high school. So my kids are already, my youngest is a senior in high school now. I have 1 year left of all of this school bullshit. Just 1 more year. That's all I got left. To be a slave to the state, because they have truancy laws and whatnot. If your kid doesn't go to school, you're gonna have the law called on you. Well, that's just how it is.
This administration clearly does not care about any of that. They do not care about the average American. They do not care about what's going on in Maui, right? They do not care about what happened, the toxic trade derailment in Ohio. They do not care about the 2-year anniversary of the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan. They do not care about Americans outside of their little elitist bubble. And it's just really frustrating to see, they keep touting like, oh, but we passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Remember, it's called Inflation Reduction Act, so that's clearly what it does, guys. Don't look it up. It's not our fault.
And that's the thing that's so frustrating about this issue, because everybody, even once people start to catch up to what the actual problem is, when it comes to the solution, they're almost always, I mean, you guarantee it, take it to the bank. Well, probably shouldn't take it there considering it's going to be devalued there. But take it wherever you need, that they're going to deploy the worst possible solution. And that's what happened with during the COVID situation. It's like, I know you remember, Sarah. I was here and we were talking about the stimulus stuff, and I'm screaming at the audience like, this is the worst. I don't care what this is. Donald Trump's going to sign off on it. This is a terrible idea. Well, we got to do something. No, you don't. Doing something. Sometimes, actually, oftentimes, when it comes to the government, them not doing a damn thing is the best thing they can do. Do an already crappy situation.
Well, hold on, because they created the problem. So the last thing you want is them creating the solution to the problem that they created by shutting all the businesses down.
Shutting the business down, low economic activity, and then giving fake money away. Right. I mean, of course, this wasn't going to happen. I was screaming back then. I was like, you're going to be feeling the impact of this, maybe for multiple decades, that minimum, a decade. And this inflationary issue is going to be a fundamental problem. But because folks are so short-sighted, I don't know if it's because the election cycles work or whatever, people are so short-sighted, it's like, well, just give them the money, shut them up for a little bit, and everything's going to be fine. And now you have everybody screwed up. Doesn't matter what economic class you're, your money does not go as far as what it did before. And that's a problem that was solely created by the state. That's just be completely honest.
I remember watching, I think it was an interview on one of the cable news networks, it was probably MSNBC or whatever. It was an economist that was linked to the government, somehow associated with what they were doing. And he was...
Alright, so I didn't get into it with someone because it was just like, yeah, it's not even worth the argument. But, there was someone from California that told me, oh, minimum wage is like up in the $10 to $11, $10, $11, $12 for their minimum wage. And I was like, that is not minimum wage. And, I was like, minimum wage is federally set at $7.20. And, they don't freaking believe me. Not whatsoever, Let me blow your mind for a second. It is $7.25 per hour. And guess what? Mississippi and Alabama, that's our starting pay. No kidding. So, y'all over in California screeching that y'all only get $11 and $12 an hour? Well, y'all could be doing a whole lot worse. And yeah, that is what it is. If California really wanted to, they could do this. Moving on.
Actually saying, right, I'll have to find the video and tweet it out later. And he goes, what we're doing is a forced recession. During that pandemic time, he goes, we're forcing the economy they're purposely driving us into recession to keep everybody from going outside. That was the plan. And they were like, yes, so how many dip? And then they had those graphs where they were going to show us going to be a massive rebound. Always, yeah. But I mean, I was like, I've never heard of that in my lifetime. And the hubris to think that, oh yeah, it's going to be perfectly fine for everyone. Of course, all these people have already made all their money. All these people are making these plans for people like you and me. They've already made all their money. It's like people with World Economic Forum. Most of them are billionaires. They're not thinking about your well-being or how you're going to climb back up that ladder and reflect that with those stupid ass graph. They're not no explanation for that whatsoever. And you're right. This is, I don't know how long, this is going to be, would you say decades?
I would say yes. I mean, for sure. What we saw, that was unlike anything we had. I need Americans to understand that. What happened during that COVID time was something like you will probably never see again. It was insane. I mean, again, the low economic activity. Yes, it was forced. The amount of money that was being printed at the same time and the amount of money that was being given away. That was all happening at the same time. I don't know how anybody that looks at that says, yeah, we're going to be fine. That makes all the sense. Because if that wasn't something that could work, why don't you do it all the damn time? No, that was a terrible idea. And I think the short-sightedness is what burned people.
Oh, and by the way, I know we got to go to break, but I just want to throw this other fun fact in here. That was before we started sending all of our money to Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just compound the matter there with all the billions that we're sending to a completely other country that we'll never, we won't see it back. I mean, I think the Democrats have mastered laundering it through Ukraine by now. You're not going to see it back. All right, we got to go take a quick break. We'll be back more. But we want to thank our sponsor. They couldn't have been just eight. Let's put the absolute at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital Gender Development Center in California. This is Dr. Diane Ehrensaft. It says that this is a woman. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah,
but
I'm
she
not
claims
going.
that children can identify as gender minotaurs among.
I am not
so she says
going
that the gender
over
may be
this story. No. Sorry, no.
Right, the state of Texas is suing Planned Parenthood, and guys, I'm really sorry I didn't bring Kleenex for this segment. I'm sorry to inform you that Planned Parenthood is very concerned that if Texas wins, they may go out of business. So this is a hard time for Planned Parenthood. So the lawsuit alleges that Planned Parenthood wrongfully accepted payment from Medicaid during a time when the state was doing those funds. So what happened? This was way back in December 2016. Texas notified them that they would end Medicaid payments to the organization. They sued. They got a federal court to agree with it.
Oh, what? 2016? Taking Medicaid payments? That's on taxpayers' dime. Who's going to jail for this? Seriously, this is medical insurance fraud. I sure wouldn't want to be in their seat. Not at all. No, 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 no. But that's even more reprehensible, monsters. I'm telling you. That's awful. That's just awful, monsters. Sure hope the state of Texas wins that one. And moving on, because, you know, they pretty much only cover 4 or 5 stories and they just have a round table discussion, and, you know, it doesn't really deviate much out of, though it's an echo chamber over there at the News and Why It Matters with Sarah Gonzalez. That's just my opinion. You know, sometimes she has some really good breakthroughs. Sometimes she has some really good interviews. For example, she had a really good interview with Chip Roy. I thought she did very well on that. And actually, you know, this is just my opinion. You know, if they hadn't if they had actually put Orange Man as Speaker of the House, like Matt Gaetz had proposed on the vote for Kevin McCarthy and everything, if y'all had actually put Donald Trump in, we would already have Donald Trump back in. So, however, since that did not happen, it was a possibility, but at the same time, someone else that who would definitely be doing a much better job in the speakership position would be Chip Roy. He's very fiery. He's passionate about his constituents. He's heartbroken about what has happened to his community. And, you know, I really wish that my representative was much more like him and was much more about the people that he represents, instead of having a moneyed interest in the military industrial complex by being on the Foreign Services Committee. Oh, also, he's on the board of my university as well. But we'll save that until next time.
Watching on YouTube, listen up. YouTube announced yesterday a new policy framework to crack down on medical misinformation posted by users on its platform. They said that they will remove content that contradicts health authority guidance on the prevention and transmission of specific health conditions and on the safety and efficacy of approved vaccines. For example, this encompasses content that promotes a harmful substance for disease prevention. It says that basically, if you don't agree with the World Health Organization and other global health entities, that you will be removed. Your content will be removed. So they don't want people to know.
Uh-oh. What? What's going on here?
But you won't hear that from the World Health Organization. So
okay.
I'm not sure who I'm even talking to right now, other than Blaze TV subscribers.
Yeah.
About it. The only people that they will look after back-to-back champion, strike removal champion.
I'm already making $0 off of YouTube, so I'm like, screw it.
I'll see you on that. It's these guys, man. They first they
Neither am I.
like, months ago, they
I don't have enough people.
It'll be going back. I don't know if they got messaging incorrect or something with WHO. That's the ones they always say that you have to listen to, despite them getting it completely incorrect. I remember one of my first takedowns was actually me going through data directly from the WHO. That was by Johnny Aeneas. And they got me in trouble because they was saying what it said. You know, I'm like, wait a minute. And then when I proved that, of course, they took my strike down. But man, I'm getting a kick out of them. YouTube, that is Twitch, and others, these video platforms, streaming platforms, just kind of doing themselves in. And the ride for alternative media, people are paying more attention on it. Twitch right now is in a big rivalry with Kick, losing a lot of power to Kick. We know what's going on with the Rumbles, the Odysseys, and all that with YouTube, and really doing stuff like this incentivizes people to look elsewhere.
This reminds me of, I remember right when the pandemic came out, we were doing that with the show on Event 201. You know, so Event 201 was basically the pandemic war game, and it was, what, 3 months before the
Oh,
pandemic
how
actually hit.
cute.
And,
Now
they
that
knew
you
it was coming and all
actually
that stuff.
mentioned
Just
that,
they were making
Mr.
plans for
Buttrell.
when the pandemic came.
All true.
All true.
Yeah. So there was something really strange about Event 201. Does anyone happen to recall hearing about the Alabama governor, Robert Bentley, getting impeached because he bought a cell phone for his mistress? Well, you want to know what he did a couple of weeks right before that? He objected very strongly to Event 201, and they took him out and they impeached him and they put Governor Kate Ivey in. So that's how the Alabama politics rolled. He didn't go along with the WEF's and the Chinese agenda, so they put somebody in that would. And now we're being run by Chinese MIC agendas. Alabama's a hotbed, everyone. It's the only place to be employed. Do you think that... Hold on. I will get you the numbers. Uh-oh. Alright. In Alabama, there is 5.04 million people. So do you expect that at least to... let's see. You're either employed in Alabama through probably maybe 5 or 6 outlets. You're going to have private contracting, such as General Dynamics or, let's see, Lockheed Martin, Redstone Arsenal. There's a few other bases and whatnot that also have factories here that make munitions, tanks. The other one is the medical industry. The other is the teaching industry with their teachers' unions and whatnot in the universities. Then you have the lower end jobs and the construction jobs. But how are you going to be able to convince all of those many millions that work in the medical and those private contracting that have forced them to get those jabs because they had to keep their jobs? So 5.04, and yep, so those are the numbers right there.
Actually
Right.
verifiable.
Yeah. So they were like, how do we plan for this? Well, one of the things that they had planned for was having one central localized source of information. And they had members of big tech, they had members of the mainstream media, all in attendance. So this was what they had planned from the get-go. The pandemic just amplified everything and gave them exactly what they wanted. So now they had all the planning before. They had real world experience, and now they're doubling down on, and that's what central planners in big government does. You know, take a crisis, take away that's
a literal false flag.
Yep.
It's literally what a false flag is, huh? Yeah, so they're just going to mute those sections now instead of actually putting up the little flashy screen saying we could get taken off of YouTube. We're just going to mute now.
Oh, by the way, if you want to know
Okay.
what we actually said right there, you're probably going to want to make sure that you're subscribed to Blaze TV. You can use
Yeah,
the
I
news
can't
for
pay
saving. Guys, this is
35
getting pretty
bucks
scary.
a
I know we're
month.
talking about YouTube right now,
Thanks.
but Glenn's entire podcast collection was just removed from Apple Podcasts for no apparent reason. They haven't given him a reason yet.
No,
So
the email that I saw, it said the podcast was removed because of an issue.
issue.
And the issue had to be resolved. Well, they haven't told us what the issue is. How can we resolve it? We already know. We've already seen disclosures that the government's colluding directly with organizations like Facebook. Was Facebook the most recent one? I think it was Facebook.
Probably. We know they put that together with Twitter.
We know for a fact that it was. I mean, this is only going to get worse. It's snowballing. Pretty soon there will be a minister of information. That's the only place you can get your news from. It's
Gary
up to them
Poppins.
for them to tell you what's going on or what everything means. So bull crap.
Yeah, so it really is important that if you can, make sure that you get a Blaze TV subscription. We're not sure how much longer we're going to be allowed to be around and not rounded up in the re-education camp. Gotta go. We'll be right back.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, according to an Australian TikToker, there are too many American flags in America. Watch.
I'm just gonna say it. There are too many American flags. Like they're on houses, they're on cars, some on couch cushions. Like I don't know who's making these American flags, but they'd be making a bloody fortune. And like you're the only country that I know that does this. Like the only time I think I've ever seen an Australian flag is like on the Harbour Bridge. Could not tell you what it looks like. Like I know it's like blue, it's got some stars on it. But I think I could draw the American flag from memory. Good. I think I could make a bloody sculpture out of it. That's how many times I've seen it. It's enough. Let's pull back on it, okay? Let's stay humble.
Maybe since you memorized what it looked like, you can draw it while your ass is on the plane to go back to Australia where you belong because we don't need you here.
It's really there in the UK. That's super.
Yeah, that's everywhere. I don't know what she's talking about. Not even just that. Pretty much almost everywhere else. They're just rocking the flag.
Mm.
Call
Okay.
your cable company and cancel your subscription. This new groundbreaking discovery gives you access to your favorite
Yeah, no.
channels and movies for
No,
free.
thanks.
And greedy cable companies are
Welcome back now. President Trump has 9 days to turn himself into a Georgia court. He is facing an arraignment of 13 charges brought by the Fulton County District Attorney. This indictment cites 12 of the former president's tweets, including a December 2020 post when he claimed he had enough votes to flip Georgia. There's a tweet from January 2021 where he claimed then Vice President Pence can reject electors. And then there are 2 other tweets that show Trump telling his followers where they can watch hearings on the Georgia election. These are the quote-unquote pieces of evidence for Georgia indicting Trump. Joining me now is former FBI Assistant Director, Agent, and Attorney Chris Wecker. Chris, great to have you. Your reaction to all of this?
Yeah, when we start indicting people for tweets, we're in big trouble. So if you look at this 98-page indictment, it is an incredibly grandiose stretch, in my opinion. I've worked with the RICO statutes, not necessarily the one in Georgia, but federal ones. And the best way to lose this tool to fight organized crime is to abuse it. And I look at this as an abuse of the RICO statute. That's not what it's designed for. This is really an effort to eradicate Trump supporters in Fulton County and the state of Georgia. So you're going to need a bigger courtroom to fit all the defendants and lawyers in that courtroom. And it's going to be multi-year litigation. It's going to last forever.
Well, that's the point that I want to make, because you're saying multi-year litigation. That's what I was expecting. These are the kinds of cases that require lots of discovery, including deposition. Can you jam that in before the 2024 election?
I don't think you can. I mean, you take those 18 defendants and their lawyers and figure, at least a half a dozen motions for each one of them on different issues.
That's
I mean,
just
litigating
so
all
crazy.
kinds of constitutional issues here. This is going to be the forever litigation. I don't think there's any way they're going to fit this in before the election. Although
I
that was the
just
prosecutor's
can't
intent,
believe
and that's
they
what
got
they
Mark
do. There's an
Meadows.
ego-driven motive here as well. All these
Her
state
phone
prosecutors want
numbers.
to get Trump criminally, and it's become sort of a notch in your belt, if you will, a way to gain notoriety both politically and as a in these Democratic strongholds. So I just don't see this one getting any legs before the election.
Well, it's just extraordinary what we're watching happen in real time. The Fulton County Court is still trying to explain how a version of the Trump indictment leaked before it was actually executed. It was posted online while the grand jury was still meeting on Monday, and now they have answered. They say, oh, it was a mishap during a trial run. Chris, your thoughts?
What?
Yeah, given that this is probably the single most sensational indictment in that county, you would think they would take extra care. It's either incompetence or there's an agenda here. I don't know which one's worse. Probably the agenda. I don't have any inside information about it, but this is not how the justice system works.
No, it's not. And of course, we're watching 2 different applications of the law when you consider what's going on with President Trump, with what's going on with President
Oh, I
Biden,
like her
and
hair.
into Joe Biden by the House Oversight Committee. Now we understand Hunter Biden's longtime attorney, Chris Clark, withdrew from the federal tax case this week. Prosecutors are blaming Hunter's legal team for the broken down plea agreement, claiming that it's inaccurate. The prosecutors reneged on an agreement which would have given Hunter blanket immunity from other criminal probes, Chris. I mean, it's amazing to me that David Weiss is the one who came up with this idea that if he agrees that he did not pay taxes, then he can get immunity for anything else. It wasn't until the judge said, wait a minute, aren't you investigating him right now? And they said, yes, we're looking at whether or not he was a foreign agent. So how do you put immunity on everything? And this is the guy who's going to run this case, the special counsel, David Weiss, is the one who came up with that idea to give him immunity.
Yeah, I mean, this was by design. People think that Weiss, they're quick to point out that he was appointed under Trump as a U.S. attorney.
No, but he actually
But really,
wasn't. He was not appointed. I spoke to President Trump about that.
And this is why we need a Domestic Protection Corruption Act against against corruption. Peter Schweitzer talks about it all the freaking time. They have one for the foreign use. Why don't they have one for the domestic side? That's what's wrong. Go after the adult children of all of the politicians, even your local ones. See what kind of kickbacks they're getting. See what if there's like any little, I'll do you a favor kind of thing. You know?
And he explained it to me. What happened was there were 2 senators from that state who were Democrats, and the 2 senators came up and said, okay, we want David Weiss, so then Trump appointed him because there were 2 Democrat senators who were pushing for him. So Trump didn't just come up with an idea to appoint David Weiss. No. He took the guidance of these 2 senators who were both Democrats, and then that's why he put him in place. So Trump told me specifically, I did not appoint him. The senators wanted him, so I went along with what they said. That's what he said to me the other day.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out. This is the way it works. The senators in a state recommend the U.S. attorneys. Right. Most of the time, the president will take that recommendation. It happens all across the country after every election, so you get a new slate of U.S. attorneys. But the point being that he grew up in that Biden machine in Delaware, and he knows what his role is. And in this case, one was to run out the clock if he could. Then they designed this poorly designed immunity agreement. That's a pure contract. I had a question. That was a question on the bar exam when I took it. The plea bargain is a contract. So they're going to litigate the contract now. Weiss tried to sneak that in there and get it past the court. And we're very lucky that this particular judge caught it. But it was designed basically to give Hunter Biden global immunity in the federal system, and they got caught red-handed. So now they're going to appoint him so-called special counsel. Well, now we have to look back at Merrick Garland, denying that he ever didn't give him independence. So they were arguing for special counsel. He was arguing for special counsel quite a while back. What changed?
Yeah, what changed? Ted Cruz told me that this is the wrong special counsel. He joined me on Sunday Morning Features. Here's the senator from Texas. Watch this. Your reaction to David Weiss being named as special counsel here?
Well, this appointment is camouflage and it's cover-up. I think it's disgraceful. Listen, David Weiss was the U.S. attorney handpicked to lead this investigation, who spent the last 5 years covering it up. David Weiss, who was personally selected by the 2 Democrat senators from Delaware, Tom Carper and Chris Coons. Not only that, David Weiss is the one that is subject to 2 whistleblower complaints from senior career IRS officials who came forward. They said they'd never seen an investigation like this in their entire time in law enforcement.
Chris, it raises the question about the FBI and what has taken place here.
Well, who are those two people? Let's look. Maybe I didn't have it right. Let's see. Harper. Okay, there he is. Okay. So that's what he looks like. And so that's what he looks like. It's from West Virginia. And here's Chris Coons. This is the other one that he just mentioned. Okay, that guy is familiar, but I don't recall which judiciary meeting or whatever I was watching. He's one of the Democrats. Okay. No, did I? No, I didn't check what he was. I wonder what DE stands for. DE. Delaware. Oh, he's a Delaware senator, not West Virginia. Okay. Who is predecessor? He was previously the governor of Delaware. Okay. That's enough for me. I just need a little background on the fella. Just stating anyhow. Back to Maria.
Here, you've heard the whistleblowers. We know now that the FBI sat on the Biden laptop as President Trump was getting impeached, even though they knew that Hunter Biden had taken in millions from foreign adversaries, including China. What happened? You were a company man for a long time. Chris, what happened to the FBI?
Yeah, I think it started under Comey. I mean, what happened, at least during my era, was agents like myself worked their way up the street up to the executive level positions. Under Comey, they started parachuting in Department of Justice political appointees in some of the executive level positions in the FBI. And I think that you go fast forward into the next era, which is under Chris Wray, again, another DOJ appointee. So politics has now entered the FBI. And I've compared notes with all my other current and retired FBI agents, and that politics never entered the picture in my 24 years in the FBI.
That's too bad.
And now it looks like every decision they make, they take these high-profile cases and opening political cases instead of going after organized crime, gangs, drugs, cartels, human trafficking. I'm not saying they're not doing that work, but they sure are expending a lot of resources on these political cases.
It's very disturbing. Certainly disturbing indeed. Chris, thanks very much. Chris Pepper is joining us, and thanks for your courage to talk with me about this. Christopher Pepper. We'll be right back.
We travel in a van with our 2 cats, and this week we're visiting family. With AutoShip from Chewy, we were easily able to push back our delivery to arrive just in.
That's the biggest scam I've ever found is Chewy.
All right, we have Winston Marshall on with us. Welcome
Order
to the
at your own peril.
How you doing, man?
They will charge your card even if you are over, and you will bounce, and it will bounce until you call your bank and you tell them to stop. A lot of people have to pay a $35 charge every single time it pops off, too. And Chewy will just sit there, ping, 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 every single day. They did it to us for almost half a month. You know how much we freaking got? We got freaking drowned with Chewy. I will never freaking order from them again. Ever. I've seen other people go into just as much debt because they freaking went crazy on the Chewy stuff. Oh, let's see what Glenn has to say. They're talking about music.
And this is Winston, right?
That's me.
Okay, good.
Hear your voice again.
Yeah, good to talk to you. One of these days, will you just bring your banjo, even if it's on the phone? Will you just bring your banjo?
Well, I think one of these days.
I think you do. I think you do. So, Winston, I saw a piece that you wrote. I think it was in the Spectator about Rolling Stone magazine. They are losing their mind over Oliver Anthony. They're just going crazy.
That's right. Yeah, well, we should start by saying the story of Oliver Anthony is absolutely wonderful. He's a kid, factory worker from Appalachian America, and he has currently got 4 songs in the top 10 songs in top 25 iTunes chart, and all 3 of the top 3. This is a huge moment. Each song has been recorded on his phone, just his beautiful voice and a guitar. It's so authentic and it's so real, and this, Glenn, is the counterculture that we've been looking for. All of this music that we hear a lot of the time just enforces the establishment. This is a real, authentic musician who's howling against both Republicans and Democrats, the rich men north of Richmond. It's just so exciting, and very rarely do I get this excited about things happening in music. Well, I certainly it's been a while anyway.
Yeah.
And yes, the music press, Rolling Stone, and not just them, a lot of music press immediately, instead of sharing this excitement of a truly countercultural moment, instead they look at who's enjoying this music, and they denigrate it accordingly. So, for example, for Oliver Anthony, they run the headlines. Right-wing influencers have a favourite new country singer. I did that. It almost sounds like backhanded. Did that have anything to do with them? So what? Who likes the music? Music is for everyone. Why would they lead with that? And this is part of a bigger picture we're seeing. When Jason Aldean, who's number 4 in the iTunes chart, but they just behind Oliver Anthony, had the incident a month ago with in a small town, a song bemoaning the rising crime. Crime, we know, has gone up something like, I think, 44% in the last 10 years, 8% in 2021 is the FBI statistic. And instead of understanding that sentiment, they paint the whole thing. They ran a title, the most ridiculous right-wing country songs of all time, hooking it onto the Jason Aldean song. As if being worried about crime is a right-wing talking point. No, it doesn't matter who you are. Crime is an issue that we all are concerned about. We all care about. It's so shocking to me. I could speak at length about Rolling Stone. Last year, for example, there's another huge story. Bryson Gray, who is a rapper, unknown rapper, beat Adele, the biggest-selling music artist of the 21st century. She's untouchable. He put out a song called Let's No Brandon, and it beat her to number 1 in the iTunes chart. But in music, and I know
That was
when you
hilarious.
have an album or a single you're about to put out, you work out who's putting out albums because you don't want to put out the same time as an artist, because then no one, you'll just get clapped out.
Yeah, I enjoy Bryson Gray. On a minute scale, I enjoy that he does not cuss. I enjoy that he doesn't have girls in there that are just wearing bikini tops and everything, and booty shorts. I don't enjoy the I did not enjoy the 90s. Let's just put it that way. I didn't enjoy the 2000s with all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas and all of that. And how did they get so wealthy? Huh?
Adele, no one dared put out a song at the same time as Adele because she's definitely going to get number 1. And then here comes Bryson Gray with the song Let's Go Brandon, and it goes number 1. Now, Rolling Stone didn't even report on that story. They're so in their own bubble that they didn't. This magazine that has been the countercultural magazine of American
Really?
history. They're so blind to genuine counterculture today in the 21st century that they miss these massive stories, or they spin them into the bizarre narrative.
Hunter S. Thompson's rolling in his grave,
sure
wherever
it
it
is,
might be.
Counterculture. I think they were only counterculture because maybe perhaps they were all leftists. Now they're not covering it because they never were counterculture. They had their ideology and they were always leftist. And now that the right is, and I can't even say this guy is right, other than meaning non-politically, he's correct. His words are the feeling of America, which is counterculture. So why wouldn't they be covering it unless they weren't counterculture the whole time? They weren't really about that.
Well, I think it would be unfair to say they weren't counterculture back in the 60s and 70s when they started. They were the counterculture. It was hippie. They were the drug-taking, avant-garde musicians. It was counterculture. What happened? And that boom, and they had some truly great writers. I mean, Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Tom Wolfe was even now considered conservative. Some people. They had some of the great post-war American writers, but they were the boomer generation, and the boomer generation are now the establishment.
Yes.
Back then they were counterculture because the counterculture, or the people in charge, it was the majoritarian Christian right, not all the time, but a lot of the time. Now it is. I don't know if you call it leftists, but the progressives, I would say, are in charge. They are the culture. They are what's the establishment. And so counterculture now needs to be against that. And when these countercultural moments happen, as with Oliver Anthony, as with Jason Aldean, as with Bryson Gray, as with the Sound of Freedom movie, we didn't even mention that. The way they documented, astonishing film, a beautiful. I saw it in a metropolitan city in Los Angeles, in a middle working class area, town, multi-ethnic audience. The whole theater was in tears, and there was standing ovation at the end. This is a film exposing the 2 million children across the world being sex trafficked.
So Winston, I can't let you talk about this without pointing out, because I'm so. I told you, I think when you were here, this audience that you're speaking to now is, I think, the greatest collection of human beings as an audience ever assembled. That this audience is the one that paid for that operation, not the movie, but paid for that operation to save those kids. That money came from this audience. Do you believe that?
Well, God bless the audience.
Yeah, they're great. They're great.
But it's absolutely astonishing, and it is God's work. And there's a famous line where there's a line, come famous in that film, God's children are not for sale. And when you see the attacks by magazines, fashion magazines like Rolling Stone, calling it far right and QAnon conspiracy theories, you cannot help but see this all as some sort of spiritual war. That clearly, this film and the work of Tim Ballard is God's work saving children And anyone who's immediately leading by attacking that, it's pretty obvious which side they're on, and it's not the side of the angel.
So then that is just shocking to me. When I saw them go after this song and say that it was far right, okay, because he was talking about high taxes and welfare and everything else, okay, I get it. But then to say it was QAnon and a weird subset of the right that seems to be obsessed with pedophilia, but obsessed in the right way, trying to stop it and stop children from the sex slavery industry. I don't even know how you defend that. How are they sitting around going, yeah, I know, it's just crazy, these people against pedophilia?
Well, there's one Vox.com article that argues that the film did more damage than the evil it was purporting to expose, which is just absolutely astonishing. And I suppose one has to pray for these people that are cooped up in their bedrooms, tapping away at their keyboard, not actually offering anything to the world except to tear down, like sons of Cain, anything good that they see. And they're just lost. They're just so lost. It's horrific. And to be, I mean, I can get angry about it, but actually, maybe I should be laughing.
No, I think you're right.
Look at the success of Oliver Anthony. As I said, 10 songs in the top, look at the success of Sound of Freedom. I think they grossed, something like $150 million on a $50 million budget. Look at the success of Jason Aldean. He goes, he's number one, still in the charts. The people they are speaking volumes. They're speaking in a way that these magazines that no one reads anymore anyway. They're just desperately scraping at the sort of the night in. I don't know. I guess I'm going to try. I pick up between frustration and anger at what they say, but also it's just so ludicrous. I suppose.
And so what he just said there, yeah, I got something to say about it. This is the reason that I do not publish in magazines at all. I'm not going to run around and try to distribute my work for some editor to sit there and sniff at. Thank you. When I'm ready to publish all of my work, it's all going to come out in one big lump. I'll be releasing almost every 3 months to my plan. As I keep going and I keep writing and everything, I've almost got my poetry book wrapped up. When that does drop, and it's going to be mind-blowing to some people because some of this poetry is so simple. I tried to focus mostly on short poems or poems that were themed strongly around our country and the morals and, themes that hit very hard and close to home for a lot of veterans. That's definitely for sure. But I think anyone that will check out the entire volume when I do release it, they will be pleased, and a lot of things will go aha, and it'll click. Some of the poems are just okay. I don't even understand why I wrote this or why I'm including it in this, but I wanted to have something for adults and children in this book so that a child could just read one small haiku and toddle along, or either a grandmother can sit and just go over some of these poems and think that right on, spot on, or something to be able to relate. And there are a lot of political poems in there, and then they're kind of funny and everything, and I have that. I have that almost ready to go. I'm so ready. I'm looking for a particular publisher. Hopefully, when I do send the query, it won't be a lot of work for them, and that we will be able to get it rolling quickly because I've already formatted the book myself. I've already got it. I've already got the size ready. I know what paper I want to use. I know how I want it bound for both hardback and paperback. I have the covers already designed, done those. The only thing I'm having a little bit of trouble myself on is formatting the headers and footers and page numbers. So I think that'll probably be like maybe one of the only things that the publisher / editor will have to do, is just format the headers and footers and the page numbers for me, and that's it. And you know, I'm so close to launching this. It's just like, okay, I can get it done. I can get it done. And poetry, it hits you. It's not something that you can just sit down and manufacture. It really isn't. The inspiration is either there or it's not. I mean, I've been able to sit and write. Let's see, I think my record for one night, which is me staying up 2 days pretty much, 2 days and a night, is 23 or 22 poems in one day, and that was lots of haikus, cinequains, sonnets, short, short couplets, things like that. There's one that I like called a Japanese Naani. It's a 25 syllable. It's very similar to a haiku, but it doesn't have to do with nature, and it's only 4 lines. So there's the extended haiku, which is called a tanka. That one's really fun. And on Thursdays, the poetry community write tankas for Tanka Thursday. And on X. So yeah, that's a fun little community there. They'll give you a prompt every Thursday, and that's what you'll write your tanka about. And some of them are just so bizarre. But yeah, and another one that I think I'm kind of toying around with is writing my own version of a 1001 books to read. Not, but it's definitely going to be different from the regular list, because the regular list, they have all of those classics and everything, and that's almost an impossible list. I'm barely a few pages into Dostoevsky's The Devils, or The Devils, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so heavy, and it takes so long to focus on Dostoevsky. So let's go back to this Winston Marshall. The banjo is from Mumford and Sons.
We're talking to Winston Marshall. He is from Mumford and Sons, and he was the guy who was kind of kicked out because he just was saying what he thought.
I didn't know he was
one last
kicked
place,
out.
and that is to Variety magazine. They are now saying that perhaps Oliver Anthony is too good to be true, that he's not authentic, that he's a plant. The hell is that?
Well, this is the conspiratorial left, I think. We get called conspiratorial for all our perfectly normal opinions, and now we can see that the conspiracy theories are really the genuine ones. Because where I do agree with them, though, is that Oliver Anthony does seem to be too good to be true, and there's a spark in him. The God's working for him. I can only pray that he keeps this, and he's not manipulated by these evil actors, and he's not brought down by quite something. I've been through it a few times, and I'm sure you have as well, Blender. When you have that sort of limelight, that sort of spotlight, you have a lot of people attacking you. It does affect you, and it affects your soul. And we must pray for Oliver right now that he's not affected by this stuff, because he's really doing God's work, and he's exposing these foul actors for who they really are. We, the people, can see how ludicrous their comments are.
So he is not doing anything, which I think is smart, and then at the same time I have a problem with it. He is not doing anything with anyone political. So he's not reaching out. He's just not taking anything to gain additional exposure. Not that he needs it. But I heard somebody say that, well, that hurts the right, because somebody should, if he's singing about these things and we agree with him and they don't. But I don't feel that way. I feel like just do your thing. Just do your thing. Don't make it about politics.
I think you're right, Glenn, and I don't think we should see this as a right and left wing. That's kind of the same bloody game Rolling Stone magazine came. Music has the ability to transcend and unite, and there's no reason why, whatever your political identity is, and as it changes through your life, there's no reason why you can't enjoy this music for what it is. And I actually disagree with who have said that, because Oliver should take time. He's got a long career ahead of him. I've been listening to his songs on repeat. This is not a one-hit wonder. This is a real talent. We're going to know the name Oliver Anthony for many years to come. And let's hope that this guy can unite us. I love your country, and I'm here a lot, and I always have this sense of the two Americas, and I really hope that they can be reconciled. And if people like Oliver, authentic, talented people like him who are in that position to do that, and I think it would be a shame for him to suddenly play into the hands of the right when he can transcend that.
Winston Marshall. He is the host of Marshall Matters. You can watch his podcast wherever you get your podcast. And Winston, it's always good to talk to you. And one of these days, show up with a banjo. Just one.
And great to speak to you again. It sounds like you're doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. God bless you.
I'm gonna skip this one because I think I've already watched it. Oh, hold on.
No living being should ever eat processed food for every single meal of their life. Good, real food.
Steve Baker, welcome to the program.
Oh,
Good to be back,
wait,
man.
no.
Thanks for having me.
So I had you on, I
I'll
think it
watch
was last
this one.
week, and we were talking about the 12,000 hours that you have been promised you're first up to view because you're working on a story for The Blaze, and you have found some pretty shocking things, but you need to verify before you even write this. You need to verify on tape, correct?
That's correct. It's actually 41,000 hours. It's roughly, the math is the 41,000 hours by 1,700 plus cameras that are available on the Capitol campus, and that would be the 24-hour day of January 6th. That's where that 41,000 hour number comes from.
So they are going to court today to try to cordon off some of this tape and say you can't see it because of national security. Is that going to prevail, and will that affect you?
It's an interesting question because we have, as you know, had limited access. There's only been 5 journalists given access up to this point. The first and most public of those was Tucker Carlson's staff's access. And then Julie Kelly, John Solomon, Joe Hanneman from the Epoch Times, and myself were the only 5 up to this point that we know of who have been given that access. And then there's been a pause button hit, and we were told that the reason why this pause button was hit was because they were developing a new media guideline. This was coming directly from Speaker McCarthy's staff. And with this new guidelines that were going to be published, and this was supposed to be published over a month ago, and then I got a call from a staffer last week who told me very specifically, he said, you were first back in. You were the guy, we know what you're working on, we want this story out, and you're going to be the first one back in under the new guidelines. And they told me that this guideline was going to be out last Friday. Well, that didn't happen. And so we still haven't seen the guidelines, and I'm wondering if there's not some connection to this new Judicial Watch. It's not a new Judicial Watch file, by the way. They filed this lawsuit back in February 21, just a month after January 6th. But the point being is that the Capitol Police themselves do not want people to have access to this video. So that's what's coming up in court today. That's a decision that prevents us from getting back in.
That is a real problem. This is the people's videotape. This is the people's house, the people's capital, and we're not allowed to see the videotape. I don't buy. It's not for a reason that is less than dark. So yesterday we had a former Capitol Police officer on with us, and he said nobody knows who Julie Farnham is, and everyone should know. Do you know her, and what can you tell us about her?
Julie Farnham was hired by the Capitol Police just October of 2020, so just 3 months before January 6th. And she was brought in to basically revamp, which was what they refer to in the January 6th committee testimony as being a failing agency or failing division itself. And she came from Homeland Security. She was actually oversaw what they called their immigration vetting division. Imagine what that was like. Yeah. But she did say that that was a significant intelligence position that she held, and that she was then brought in to oversee this 12-person internal intel analyst division at the Capitol Police, which she described as an intelligence consuming division, not an intel gathering division, whatever that means. But I will tell you this, that there's not really anything nefarious at all. As a matter of fact, her testimony, even before Pelosi's J6 Select Committee, is quite damning as to what was available to them. She was very clear that they had significant intel. In fact, they had intel that said specifically that there were going to be a large number of armed and with weapons protesters coming to the Capitol that day, that there was actual intent to actually invade the Capitol that day, and that furthermore there was intelligence that they intended to actually take out Congress members. And with all of that intelligence there and reported to the January 6th committee, this information has never been shared with the American public. But I have a transcript of her testimony.
Holy cow. So Farnham, she worked for Farnham, right? In the intelligence arm of the Capitol?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she would have been reporting directly to Assistant Chief Yogananda Pittman, who was the head of Capitol Police Intelligence.
Okay. And then when she moves over to the Chief of Police, Pittman, then Farnham goes where?
Farnham was with the agency or with the Department of Capitol Police as their what they call Assistant Director of Intelligence and Interagency Coordination. So she headed up that division for about 2.5 years before she went back into apparently private practice. She no longer lived with them. She left in May of this year.
Okay. So why would he say yesterday that we need to know her? She sounds like a good guy.
Yeah, I will tell you that the background that I have personally done on Farnham doesn't give me any indication that she herself had any nefarious intent. But I will tell you that, again, going back to her testimony before the Select Committee, that there are more clues about what Lieutenant Johnson said in that she absolutely called an intelligence meeting with the upper echelon of Capitol Police leadership, and this was on January 4th, in which she specifically says that both Chief Gallagher and Chief Pittman were present, and she even says to the committee, it is my understanding that Chief Sund was not invited, quote unquote.
So who would have the power, or what would the motivation be for Pittman not to pass all of this intel along?
Well, what would be the motivation? I mean, we have to, with any type of government operation, we have to start with incompetence. We always start there, and we're talking about the actual police department administrated by the largest, most incompetent government in the world. That's a fair place to start before you get into malfeasance or malevolence or anything of that sort. But the fact that they knew, and this is very, very important for the American people to know, is not only that they have the intelligence, and it wasn't just from their own internal analysts. This intelligence of a significant event that was coming their way was testified to by many other sources. We know that the FBI was sharing intelligence with them. They were receiving intelligence all the way from the New York Police Department that there was significant nefarious operators that were going to be descending on D.C. that day. And then, of course, we also have heard, as we heard in the Tucker Carlson Stephen Sund interview last week, that we had both the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Milley, as well as the Secretary of Defense, Chris Miller, wanted to shut D.C. down. They wanted to cancel all of the permitted events. And this is the other thing that Americans don't know, is that the Capitol Police themselves had issued at least 6 what they call First Amendment protest permits for that day. These were
signed off by the Capitol Police, in which they knew that members of Congress were going to be speaking at some of those side stage events on the Capitol property. We're not talking about the big rally that Trump was holding at the Ellipse, but these were events that were scheduled, permitted, legally so, signed off by the Capitol Police leadership, and for some reason, none of that information was ever passed down to their command level officers like Lieutenant Johnson. None of that information was ever shared in their morning roll call briefings that morning. We know from multiple testimonies, both on the record and off the record, with Capitol Police officers, frontline officers, that they knew nothing about what was coming their way that day. We even heard those testimonies in trials. In the first Oath Keeper trial, there was an officer by the name of Ryan Salke, and he was a brave officer. He stood his ground on the east door. That's where the famous Columbus doors are. He was getting beaten, manhandled. He was getting just drenched in all manner of pepper spray and OC spray, and he never left his post until that door was finally breached. And in that trial, he was asked under cross-examination if he knew about the permitted events on the Capitol grounds that day. He said no. He said the only thing I know, and I quote from my own notes because I was there at that trial, he said, I only knew something was happening at the White House.
What conclusion do you draw? And are we ever going to get to the end of this? Are we ever going to find out what really happened? What happened to the pipe bombers? What happened? Where's that?
Well, exactly. Look, Glenn, I draw the same conclusion as Tucker did in that interview last week. This sounds like a setup, and there's just too many missing, or there's too many elements here, too many connective tissues showing that it was for this to be just gross incompetence. And in fact, in Farnham's assessment, one of the last questions that she was asked was this a failure leading up to January 6th? And her answer was very simply this. She said, I don't think it was a failure of intelligence. I think it was a failure to operationalize the intelligence. And of course, she would not have had it was not her position to do and write the morning briefings for those officers that day. Somebody had that information. Obviously, it was right up to Pittman's office, and she had a briefing with them on the 4th. That information was shared, and for some reason, they did not disseminate that to their officers that day.
Do you know what happened with where we are on the pipe bomb? Is that just over? We're not looking for
well, it's still called an open investigation, which is why in recent hearings on the Hill that they won't answer questions about it because, as you know, they always say, well, that's an open investigation. I can't talk about it. But I will tell you this. We know that pipe bombs themselves were inoperable. They were stunt pieces. They were never intended to go off. They were basically diversionary tactics because the first one was found in the minutes before the first barricade breach at about 12:52 p.m. that day, and the second was found just after that. And when both of those were found, and you can hear it on the Capitol Police radio comms, which I've heard all of them. I've heard hours and hours of the radio communications. I've read the transcripts. That there is absolutely was chaos in that moment because now the undermanned Capitol Police, which is a whole other story in and of itself, is why a department.
Yeah, so I know that one to be kind of true because if when okay, me and my husband, this is the one and only time that we actually felt compelled that we wanted to go and protest was January 6th. But about 3 days before, we had the car ready to go. We had the gas. We had the money. We might not have been able to stay at a hotel or anything. We would have probably slept in the car. But it was the one time that we actually felt compelled to go. And, you know, just like 3 days before, I just got this really bad feeling. It was like, no, we can't go. It's a trap. And we stayed home and we had every single screen on, and I was going to a Twitch channel called Hey Kappas. And if you look at Glenn's TVs up here, Hey Kappas had like almost this many screens going at the same time. And then, you know, it was streaming so many of these different Twitch streams or whatever was going on. So I had that going on my computer. I had my TV going. I had a TV that was on my bookshelf behind the desk and computer here on that wall. I had that one going, and I had my son's TV in his room on the Xbox going as well, and my husband had his laptop. So we were tuned in to almost everything. We had Fox going, we had MSNBC and CNN going. We had Right Side Broadcasting was also going as well. I was jumping back and forth on Twitch from Pete Santilli to Hey Kappas. And just watching it. I mean, if anybody could find Hey Kappa's video footage, I mean, their channel went completely silent the day after the 6th. Their channel was, you know, it's still there, but they have not broadcast since the day after the 6th. They've been gone. You know, they still have like their link for the tip jar or whatever, and up until then, the Hey Kappas was really good for, you know, streaming like Antifa riots and stuff that was going on over in Oregon or Seattle or over in LA, the gay pride parades, all of that stuff. Hey Kappas was revealing all of it, and they didn't even talk. They just sat there and streamed this stuff on a mirror wall. And just seeing all of it, you know, and definitely during the George Floyd riots, it was crazy watching Hey Kappa's channel. So, I mean, you know, if anyone was able to find Hey Kappa's archive from Twitch. Wow. They'd find a whole lot of stuff because me and my husband, we sat here and we watched several teams that were sitting there nodding at each other, all variously, they were, one was here, one was there, one was here, one was there, all down the hallways. You could see these guys nodding at each other. They fucking knew who they were. There were several different groups. Getting back to it.
Department with almost 2,000 uniformed officers that day only had a couple hundred available on campus at the time, and then they were additionally diverted because those pipe bombs were found at buildings under the purview and responsibility of the Capitol Police themselves.
It is almost like what a terrorist does when they set off a bomb and all the first responders go there and are distracted from what really is going on, or they're blown up at the site. They drag them in. I think these guys with pipe bombs clearly were dragging the Capitol Police away, so things could get much, much worse. Stephen,
Well, I mean, Pete was the first one to report on it. He heard it. He was like, "There's a bomb? What? Where?" Yeah, that's what Pete Santilli was saying that day. And him and his wife, or I think it's his common law wife, I'm not sure if they're married, but his wife Deb, they were they were freezing. Deb had the prettiest coat on and her boots and everything. And Pete was complimenting Deb that day. I found that pretty endearing for those two. But pretty much usually I don't like Pete Santilli, but he's good for info. I mean, he's on it. He's checking everything every single day. I mean, that guy, he's a machine beast. I'm broadcasting, PJ.
investigation that you're doing, and we don't want to give out any details until you find what you're looking for. You say you have the smoking gun, and you just have to get it, and hopefully it's not you're not shut out from it after today's hearing. But how close are you really to being able to prove that this was at least aided and abetted by somebody in our government?
I can tell you that there were specific circumstances that have been produced in trials and given to the American people through the media sources, the mainstream media mostly, that stories that have been told in those trials are not what the truth is shown through these videos. We have clear-cut examples that I have found of, and there's just no other way to say it. I have found, as I think I said to you last week, of the kill shot on actual manufacturing of evidence that did not exist by the truth of the video reveal, as well as the suppression of exculpatory evidence in some of these trials that is nothing more than a conspiracy by both the Department of Justice and FBI to create evidence out of whole cloth to convict individuals, as well as to suppress evidence.
Usually when that happens, everybody is released, because if they're suppressing evidence or doing anything else, you can't trust any of the court cases at all. Do you think you'll see these people go free?
I think that once we reveal this information, and Glenn, to be honest with you, if they block us from getting the access to the videos, I've already seen it. I've read at least a dozen other people into this, as well as other eyeballs have seen the information that I found. In fact, we called after the first day of what we stumbled upon. I immediately got on the phone and called Mike Howell from the Oversight Project at the Heritage Foundation and had him come over, and I showed him what we found. But I needed somebody else's eyeballs on this. It was that big, it was that important. So even if they withhold the access to, in other words, they don't give me the video clips on the hard drive and allow us to show this to the American people, I already have the camera numbers, I have the timelines, and we will reveal the cover-up if we have to go that far.
Wow. Thank you for everything that you're doing, Steve. I appreciate it. I think Americans are just tired of all of this and just want justice, one way or another. Bad guys are on our side, put them in jail. If bad guys are on the other side, put them in jail. I'm so tired of this game that they're playing, and our children and our children's lives and opportunities, all at stake. For what? So they can have more power and more money? It's grotesque. Steve, thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Appreciate it. I had our daily meeting with the producers today, and Michaela said, man, today I read all of the news in the show prep, and it just hit me so hard. I'm really having a hard time. I had to stop and pray. And I'm like, really? Because I thought today was kind of a slow news day. It's kind of typical. It's weird how some days, it hit us differently. We are in the battle of our lives for the battle of the Republic. And I personally think there is so much good news. The logjam, we are so close to be able to unravel this whole thing. And Americans are waking up. Stay calm, cool, and collected.
Oh no,
Did
don't
you
mess
know
with
that
Zay.
Kroger Delivery is
home.
now delivering fresh groceries to your neighborhood? That's right. You can get your fresh favorites delivered right to your door.
The Cherokee are indigenous people of
No,
North America.
not ready for that right now. I want to watch Peter Zahon. If you've watched my From Mothers to Monsters,
Hey everybody, Peter Zine here, coming to you from the Golden Banner Trail above Ken Carl, which is a suburb of the Denver Metroplex.
if you've watched my From Mothers to Monsters, I mentioned this guy in the very first article. He's a fairly thorough geopolitician advisor. He mostly focuses on birth rates, death rates, agriculture, and natural resources and whatnot. He usually just gives little 5-10 minute updates and everything on what he thinks is the biggest issue of the day, and he will be leagues and miles ahead of the curve, so to say. So let's get to it.
Today we're going to talk about water, specifically all the water that northern China's got in the late. They had heavy spring and summer rains, and they just got hit by a typhoon, and so there's significant flooding through Beijing. It's already killed a few dozen people. The key thing to remember about China is a lot of its government structures are a direct outcome of its geography. So the North China Plain, where the Han ethnicity basically had a form of power, is a big wide open area that is both drought and flood prone. The drought is normal climatic stuff. This is a semi-arid region, maybe roughly akin to a cooler version of central Texas or maybe central Nebraska. But instead of having kind of braided rivers that flow through it, it's got one single mighty river, the Yellow, that originates significantly upstream, a couple thousand miles away, that drains an absolutely massive watershed in an area that is a soil type called the loess, which is wind-driven soils, very fine particulates. And that means when it's dry zone, a lot of it's actually desert, does get rain, most of it runs off, it carries a lot of silt with it, and that's why the Yellow River has sand, the silt is yellow. By the time you get downstream to where everyone lives in the North China Plain, it's a raging torrent, but it's a raging torrent with lots and lots and lots of sediment. Now, if you can capture that sentiment, kind of like the flood dry that you had in, say, Egypt or the American Midwest, you get incredibly productive farmland. But that requires you growing things like corn, wheat, and the rest. China's a rice country. Water management is very important. Rice has to have very specific watering conditions at every stage of its production, otherwise the crop is lost. Now, Northern China don't grow rice anymore, but after 2,500 years of growing rice, that has set certain things into motion. Specifically, they have to be able to control the river, otherwise the water will come or be not there at the time of its choosing, rather than the Chinese people's choosing. That requires a lot more organization at the state level, which tends to generate a stronger hand in terms of government, and a requirement that you have everybody under a single house politically, otherwise various factions will just attack the waterworks and destroy whatever the hostile power happens to be. Fast forward that 2,500 years. Wrestling the river into shape means basically building ginormous dikes down the entirety of its length for the entirety of civilized northern China. That means the silt has nowhere to go. So in the Midwest, one of the problems that we've seen after just 150 years of trying to do this strategy out in Mississippi is you get silt on the bottom of the riverbed that raises the level of the water so that when one of those dikes does break, it floods an entire area. So a big thing that the Army Corps of Engineers have been doing over the last decade is leveling some of those dikes and returning some of the land to wetlands just towards where the flood flows. This is at least 2 orders of magnitude more significant in the case of China because you're talking about the most dense human population footprint in the country. Rotate a little so you can see out this. So see that? See that over there? There. That is Red Rocks Amphitheater. So if you want to see the show in Denver, go there. Have a great view of downtown to sunset. Anyway, what this means now is that in China you've got 2.5 millennia of sediment, and so every time there's a flood, it threatens the entire dike system. If you have a break somewhere, it's a much bigger problem than you have in Mississippi because after 2.5 millennia of heavy sediment, the floor of the river in many cases is now above the ground level, surprising, of the surrounding lands. Meaning those dikes are 2, maybe even 3 stories above the cities, and if they break, the entire course of the river, river goes by the path of least resistance, crashes down into the populated zones.
Oh, wow.
Now that hasn't happened this year. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm saying that the Chinese really didn't finish their dike system to the current level of absurdity until just about 10-15 years ago. They used to have floods regularly and kill hundreds of thousands of people. And in today's environment where the Chinese are facing every possible problem under some of their finance, their economy, and their demographics, this is just one more thing you have to factor in, because when this breaks, and physics tells us in time it will, they're going to lose significant portions of some of their most advanced infrastructure, not to mention lots and lots and lots of people. So whenever you see it raining west of Beijing, pay attention, because it matters a very great deal. All right, take care.
Are you ready to start making real money with your drone? It is a fact that the drone industry is the next big thing and is
What was once unprecedented has now become routine. A Georgia grand jury indicting former President Donald Trump and 18 others.
Okay.
Over alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election, making this Trump's 4th indictment.
What do you got to say, Kevin?
This a, quote, dark period for our country. Saying, quote, this is a continuation of the greatest and longest running witch hunt in American history. Join us now, Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy.
No, I would say the same witch trial was.
It seems like a concerted effort to indict and take down illegally President Trump. Your response to reaction?
It's exactly that, Sean. We've watched starting with the DA in New York, now a DA in Georgia, instead of protecting those in Atlanta. She puts out an email last Thursday saying, I have a big announcement from her campaign. They are campaigning off this instead of following what the Constitution says. They are showing the American public that we have 2 different justice systems. One for your political opponent if you're opposed to the Bidens, then a play to play for the Bidens. The Justice Department does nothing. This is what's wrong with America today and what frustrates all Americans, whether you're independent, Democrat or not. We believe in equal justice, and this is not what we're seeing.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of unequal justice, it's usually law enforcement that get the tip, but a new transcript released by House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer confirms Biden's 2020 transition team was tipped off about plans to interview Hunter Biden, but that interview never happened, proving further the two-tier justice system that exists in America today. And on that note, just to get your reaction about David Weiss, who's overseeing the Hunter Biden investigation out of Delaware, is now the special counsel, and Merrick Garland, his boss, and he have said all along about that Weiss had total authority over the investigation. He had power to charge the Hunter Biden case outside of Delaware. Then why the need for the special counsel designation? The why now?
Now, why now? First of all, Daniel Weiss, if he was in the private sector, after letting the statute of limitation run out, which the IRS complained about never to allow that, to write the allegations before the courts but be thrown out, even in the plea agreement, if he was in the private sector, he would have been fired, not promoted. We said from the very beginning we needed a special counsel. It just proves the Republicans were right. But it also proves that the DOJ is trying to cover up. This will not hold us back from getting any information we need. We will not allow it. Now, why would the FBI tip off an inaugural committee, a campaign committee? And if we needed to interview Hunter Biden, why wouldn't Hunter Biden, of all innocents they talk about, why wouldn't he just come in for the interview? Why would they try to hide from him? Also, the number 2 under David Weiss, why did she tip off the Hunter Biden's own attorneys? And his own attorneys did not know he had a storage unit where his papers were kept. Instead of going there and getting those papers and rating it like they did Mar-a-Lago, they told the attorneys about it ahead of time, something they did not know, where they could clean it out before we even had the opportunity. This is what we're talking about when we say the weaponization of justice. We're watching this DOJ do one thing for the Bidens and different for every other American. Nobody else would get treated. You wouldn't get your statute of limitations to go out. And you know what? If I went, or Sean, you went to dinner with one of your children, they wouldn't get a brand new Porsche and $3.5 million either. And if you had lied to the American public and say, you never talked about business, and now you find out, yeah, you did, and your family never got any money from China, but yeah, now you did. And tell me one member in Congress or a vice president that they take office and your family opens up 20 shell companies while you're vice president, and your family gets 16 out of 17 payments while you're vice president from Romania. Don't you think that's wrong?
It's a little bit odd. And that'll be offered an immunity deal. My child will be offered an immunity deal for misdemeanor charges that should have been felonies and no charges on a gun charge. It's a really good point, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to hear the House is going to continue with their investigation and not be deterred with the special counsel nomination. Before we let you go, I want you to take on this because Nebraska Congressman, one of your colleagues, Don Bacon, announcing his personal campaign emails. They were hacked by the Chinese Communist Party. Shocked by this, but Bacon, who serves on the Armed Services Committee.
Ooh, Armed Services Committee. Haha. Where does that sound familiar? Mike Rogers. Anyhow, yeah, why don't y'all look into some of the Republican side and see how much that they put into the stocks? Dan Crenshaw has had quite a few hefty investments. And, shameful. That's all I got to say. You know. Dan Crenshaw's in it for Dan Crenshaw. And if you read his little autobiography that he self-narrated, you'll see. He's very narcissistic from what I can tell. So, take what you will from that.
He has been an outspoken critic of China and been a supporter of the independent Taiwan movement. What do you make of the Chinese going after one of your members, hacking their email accounts? How serious is this?
This is very serious. And, Don Bacon isn't just a member of Congress. He's a retired Air Force general. Yeah. So what were they trying to find? Why are they going after? What's even questionable to me, they met Swalwell as he's a city councilman. He becomes a congressman. He still keeps a relationship. He gets put on the Intel committee. Why would Nancy Pelosi keep him on the Intel committee? We watched that the Chinese had a driver for 10 years for Dianne Feinstein. They continue to try to steal. The latest report from the FBI, China steals on average from $200 to $600 billion a year from Americans on our intellectual property and others. $4,000 for every family. This is why when Republicans took the majority, we created a select committee on China, something that Nancy Pelosi denied us to do. But we are looking at this. Gallagher is leading it as the chairman. We've actually worked very well together. When the president of Taiwan came to America, I met with her at the Reagan Library. You want to know why? No greater symbol to the freedom of America defeating communism. And we had a bipartisan meeting there. The Chinese are serious about what they want to do around the world. And we need to be serious ourselves to protect our intellectual property and the future and the critical minerals to make sure America stays safe.
Mr. Speaker, it's a small majority you have in the House. It's been impressive all you have gotten done with your investigations. And we're grateful to the bottom line. And thank you for joining us. Stay safe out there. Appreciate it.
And it's always great to see you too. Congratulations on what you're doing. It's a fabulous show.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You gotta keep coming back more often.
I love to do it. I'm trying to smile.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What if I told you there's a secret hack to get all your favorite TV channels for free legally? Would you do it? This new groundbreaking discovery gives
President Biden getting shamed into saying more than just no comments to the deadly wildfires in Hawaii. It's been nearly a week since the destructively reduced entire towns to rubble. And while Hawaii was counting its dead, Biden was busy being a beach bum in Delaware, relaxing in his lounge chair for hours and soaking up the sun. Today, he finally got serious about the disaster by promising a visit and addressing the survivors in a more meaningful way by reading off the teleprompter.
I've spoken to Governor Josh Green multiple times and reassured him the state will have everything it needs from the federal government. I immediately approved the governor's request for expedited major disaster declaration. That's a fancy word of saying whatever you need, you're going to get.
Well, the damage has been done. A former Hawaii State Democratic rep said he found Biden's no-comment response to be shocking and out of character. And the president's press secretary isn't making the administration look any more confident after butchering the name and gender of Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono.
Senator Harino, who I said the president spoke to just last night, he thanked the president for the immediate support federal agencies have delivered for residents of Hawaii, and so has Senator Schwartz.
Speaking of Senator Hirono, she's using the tragedy to push the Democrats' climate change agenda. I think that we very much need to acknowledge that climate change is upon us. There are whole states, by the way, Jake, where you can't even use the words climate change because they still have a hit in the sand attitude.
He makes a good point.
Would you like? All right, Greg. Okay, is Hawaii getting the 7th grandchild treatment?
Yes, I'm not crazy about attacking like the delayed tragedy response because everybody does it, but I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. I return to the most perplexing problem. We aren't asking Joe Biden to ride a unicycle on a narrow road between 2 skyscrapers. The requirement, what we're asking for, is his wheelhouse, right? This is his Metamucil and butter. And he can't do it. This is the king of empathy here. This is the dog that's not barking. That old phrase. He's done. I mean, his wheelhouse is empathy, and he's expressing none at the time where it's most necessary and fairly easy. I mean, imagine if you turn on the 5 and Harold is glum and ugly, not as handsome. You would know something is wrong with him. There's something. He's not long for this. You know what I mean? I've seen this. When you go to a restaurant, the chef just not cooking that well anymore, and you know it's just a matter of time. That's what we're seeing. There's a mass tragedy, and the designated guest at every state funeral can't do it. Maui's in terrible shape, but this White House ain't much better.
Okay, Zaina, Biden won Hawaii. I believe it was 63 to 43.
I'm surprised it's only 63.
Right. What do you see the split being this year after this mess?
Well, do I see any Republicans tweeting in saying, hey, we got you? No, not really. Will Kane's on the ground there, but who else is saying, yeah, we'll do that? I mean, there's comparisons to money to Ukraine for Hawaii, but that's actually make a different political point. Republicans want to get in there and say, we have ideas for you. We know how to rebuild. We're going to volunteer. We got great, knock yourselves out, but I don't exactly see that happening. I can't get over the press secretary not knowing that Senator Hirono first how to say her name and that she's a woman. Because she's been a senator for quite a long time now. Let me tell you, as press secretary, I made 100 mistakes a day, probably. And my blooper reel would be horrendous. I imagine she probably called and apologized, and I'm sure it was taken because that's pretty tough.
How do you not know the dumbest senator?
I don't know, is that what we're calling this?
Yeah.
Apparently. Okay, wait. I would like to mention something else that you were bringing up. That Biden has this weird pattern of a lack of empathy.
Yeah.
So the East Palestine, remember, this was so weird that they couldn't even say, yes, we're going to go. Like, what were they afraid of?
Yeah.
It's not hard to do this. Afghanistan, they could never say that there were any mistakes. They have to say the greatest airlift in history. Baby formula, that was everybody else's problem. Gas prices rise, it's somebody else's problem until they go down and then they take off.
Now, this is what I had said in another episode, I believe, is that with dementia and Alzheimer's, he can't remember. He can't remember 5 minutes ago, much less a week ago. That's how the dementia works. Dementia is short-term memory. Alzheimer's is long-term memory. The reason he can remember the long ago stories is because it's his long-term memory. It's not Alzheimer's we're worried about. It's dementia, everyone. When he can just no longer move on his own and has to be assisted, it's soon.
Call the credit, and they just expect the media to cover for them, basically. And the last point on climate change is that I am okay saying, yes, maybe warmer waters, the higher hurricanes, the winds. However, there is evidence that Hawaii, for a long time, has been warned of wildfire risk. And there's a lot of money out there on climate change. And was any of that money used to mitigate the wildfire problems in this area? And I would submit that when we finally get the answers, probably not much.
All right, Charlie, the people boss yesterday talked about the need for culturally responsive outreach. Do you think that people in Hawaii really care about culturally responsive outreach?
No, I don't think they do at all. But it's funny. Whoever said that Biden's response was shocking but not out of character, I would agree that it was shocking. But I would also say that his response was so in character, it's not even funny. When he says no comment, and then the White House has to later come up with a statement saying that, oh no, he's mourning. he's in mourning, but he wasn't. And why did he have no comment? Because he didn't know what to say. Maybe he didn't hear what the reporter asked, but he had no idea what to say, which is a very alarming thing, but also very much in character with Joe Biden. And where was he? He was at the beach. He was lounging in a lounge chair on the beach with the former ambassador to Romania. I wonder what they were talking about. But that's who this guy is now. And this, for the longest time, Democrats, or in the last couple years, Democrats have tried to portray him as this compassionate, empathetic person, and that's really not who the guy was for 50 years in Washington. And so this response to me is very in character.
Harold, they say the estimated impact of the fires is $5.6 billion. Hopefully, with all the money we're giving Ukraine, we'll be able to help Hawaii out, since I assume that tourism is going to be in trouble. But Paris Hilton, I think, is having a good time.
No, I imagine we're going to get, I think, the president, when he spoke with the governor, said you're going to get what you want. I would agree that we had this conversation yesterday about Greg's point at the start of it about, if whoever's in power gets criticized by those out of power, and these things. And this is one of those moments where the president probably deserves a little criticism for being late to expressing himself. My advice to the White House: keep the president off the beach as we deal with this situation in Hawaii, of all places, until he's able to visit. I'm glad that he and the first lady are going to be able to go there. Dr. Biden will be able to go there. But it's not a great visual. Even if he had said the word right at the very beginning, I think at this point to be doing that. I give him credit still. I believe him. I hope when I say I believe him, I'm glad he's better late than never, because I think you have to live and work and hope, and hopefully we don't get caught up in talking about climate change too much. We still have thousands of people unaccounted for. We got 25% of the area. Only 25% of the area has been searched. Let's focus our ire and all of our energy there, and then we get back to fighting about climate change.
Is he going with Jill or is he going with Kamala?
I think it's going with Dr. Biden.
Yeah.
Thank God she's a doctor.
Yeah, she might be able to help.
Yeah.
I want to Brian, tell me. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube.
Hello everyone, this is Outnumbered. I'm Kaylee McEnany. Joining me today, Fox and Friends first co-host Carly Shimkus, host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy, Restoring America editor for the Washington Examiner and senior fellow for the Independent Women's Forum, Kaylee McGee White, and Fox News contributor and columnist for The Messenger, Joe Concha. We begin with a call for America to get back to its own ideal, freedom. That'd be nice. Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy is speaking out against the tyranny of the minority and the new culture of oppression that seeks to silence and punish people just for having a different opinion. Vivek made his case in an exchange with an LGBTQ activist at the Iowa State Fair, and since that, it's gone viral. I'm personally pansexual, so I was just wondering what your view on same-sex couples.
I don't have a negative view of same-sex couples, but I do have a negative view of the tyranny of the man. So I think that in the name of protecting against the tyranny of the majority, and there are times in this country's history where we have had a tyranny of the majority, we have now, in the name of protecting against the tyranny of the majority, created a new tyranny of the minority. And I think that that's wrong. I don't think that somebody who's religious should be forced to officiate a wedding that they disagree with. I don't think somebody who is a woman who's worked really hard for her achievements should be forced to compete against a biological man in a swimming competition. I don't think that somebody who's a woman that respects her bodily autonomy and dignity should be forced to change clothes in a locker with a man. That's not freedom, that's oppression. And so I believe that we live in a country where free adults should be free to dress how they want, behave how they want, that's fine. But you don't oppress by forcing that on others. I think a lot of the frustration in the country, to be really honest, that I also share, comes from that new culture of oppression where saying those things, you have to get somebody punished. And in my case, it's more like I have to really just say, I respect that you have an opinion, and that's okay. It probably makes our country great, and civil and have this conversation. And that we live in a country that still gives us, each of us, the right to speak. President candidate back, we'll still say that we believe it's the same nation. So against the beauty of our country.
Powerful exchange. Carly, I think this should be a model for presidential candidates everywhere. He told Blair, I respect your difference of opinion. We all live under the same flag, presumably, and that's the ideal. But nevertheless, we focus the issue. The issue is when your freedom impinges upon the freedom of children, for example. Yeah, and I'm just thinking about all the conservative speakers who are shouted down on college campuses, which ironically is the birthplace of free speech. And this video proves that it doesn't have to be that way. Usually when you talk to somebody you disagree with, both parties do wind up walking away smarter because you either think about something that you haven't considered before or you reaffirm your own position. So I love this video in this moment because it's a reminder of that. I also give a lot of credit to the LGBTQ activists for being so polite and shook his hand in the end. This video obviously going viral. It's been viewed millions of times on social media. One person said this guy, meaning Vivek Ramaswamy, is interesting, nice, and he's 900 years old. And I got any comment. Other people felt like it was so perfect, it was staged. And I think that's because people are so thrown off by civility that they're like, this can't possibly be real. To me, though, it read authentic. Me too. You know, Kennedy, I think it says something when it got 13 million plus views. I mean, that's enormous. People appreciate civil discourse. We used to have this not too long ago. You could have different opinions and say, hey, we're all Americans. Like, let's go eat fried Twinkies at the Iowa State Fair.
Yeah, and that's why you're seeing Vivek's numbers improve. And that's why he's on this very smooth upward trajectory. And that's because he's meeting people wherever they are in every.
Well, the question is which platform was that? And the views. Because if you just scroll on Twitter/X and it starts to play, that counts as a view. You don't have to watch the whole damn thing for it to be counted as a view. Now, YouTube's a little different. You actually have to click on that, and it'll also give you analytics of how long your viewer actually watched.
State in every context. And he's fearless when he talks to people, and it really is, you bring up that good word, it is a model. It is a model for discussing things, not only if you want someone's vote, but if you just want to find common ground, and that's what he did, and I think that's really important. Finding common ground with this person, and stating his beliefs, but also stating his desire to let this person know why he's having a hard time, why he's so fired up, why he's so passionate, why he's running for president. And that's how, it's like we have seen families rip apart, people we love most, that we're related to, that we can no longer talk to or be in the same room with because of politics. And, for so long, people have gotten attention for being divisive. And here is someone who, isn't necessarily in the spotlight to bring people together, but that happens to be the follow-through to what he's doing, is he's showing people we can find common ground, we can talk to each other, we can have differences. And in those differences, we don't have to hate each other because we are all Americans. So could you imagine if he were vice president? I don't think he's going to overcome the deficit, but someone like this able to articulate the points that he has, could you imagine, as someone like that representing this country, it really makes you think for a moment. And Vivek's campaign for president was a real, genuine, authentic interaction, though they are far and few these days. Joe, I also think it speaks to the importance of words. Words really matter. Speaking to the issue he was talking about, your watch sensitivities, I understand that's a very personal issue. But when you look at this Washington Post KFF, I just want to show our viewers, watch how this polling flips. Okay, more than 60% surveyed do not want biological men and women in sports. More than 60% oppose hormone treatment for minors. 77%, these are huge numbers, think that you should not discuss sex identity in K-3 education. But watch how this flips. When you flip the polling and you say, are you against anti-LGBTQ legislation? 70% say yes, of course we're against that. So when it's framed in terms of culture war, don't say gay, you lose. When you talk about just common sense issues, children, you win.
When you're specific on the question, do you think biological males should compete against biological females? Leah Thomas in swimming, for example, ranked 500 and something when he was a man, then goes over to the women's side and wins the national championship. That makes no sense. It makes no logic. My wife ran Division I, Georgetown, Boya Saxa, and she's not a political person. But when she hears this, she says, you know how hard it is to get to a Division I scholarship? You work your butt off, and then you look over down the line, and you know you're going to get beat because the person you're running against has legs like Saquon Barkley, and I know I'm not going to win because that actually is a guy, and that makes many suburban women angry regardless of political affiliation. Let me go a little inside baseball for a second. Vivek Ramaswamy, we played that soundbite. The standard in this business, as we know, is to play a soundbite maybe 15, 20 seconds, maybe 25 seconds. You read the news every day. We played that for a full minute because that's how good it was. And you said, Kennedy, he'll meet people wherever they are. That includes television, by the way. He'll go anywhere. He has unflappable interviews. He's passionate in his arguments. He's very respectful and civil and intelligent. I agree with you completely. That's a vice presidential candidate right there. If I'm Donald Trump and it's looking like he'll win the nomination, I get it's a long way to go, but the polling is the polling. That's the first guy I look at. Because who's Donald Trump? An outsider. Who's an outsider also? Vivek Ramaswamy, very successful in the business world. He's worth over $600 million based on what he made in the private sector. So I don't see anything wrong with it. You want to tell me about age? I talk about maturity. That's a mature guy right there.
Hey, absolutely. And he did the flood his own media strategy going on Hustle Network with Don Lemon and Chuck Todd. And look, when Tim Scott did that and went on The View, it got a ton of attention. It was a huge moment. So it is a lesson to candidates. But Kaylee, going back to the point, I hope we see more interactions like that because when you're talking about winning persuadable voters, interactions like that win persuadable voters.
Absolutely. And I think that the other reason that this interaction is going
going viral is because the message that Vivek was talking about resonates with people. It reminds me a little bit of the viral Oliver Anthony song, who sings about living in a new world and an old soul and the tyranny of the minority. And this is how a lot of Americans feel. And this is on a number of issues, not just transgenderism, but take transgenderism, for example. About 4% of the population identifies as a gender different than their sex. And yet the other 95% are being asked to give up their basic expectations of safety and fairness in women's sports and women's restrooms. They're being asked to accommodate new language standards, to use preferred pronouns, even if they disagree with this. And think about this on other issues as well. For example, climate change. About 30% of voters think that climate change is a priority that the government should be setting on top. The other 70%, what do we have to deal with? We have to deal with a federal government that is hand-handedly forcing new emission standards on us, forcing us to buy electric vehicles, trying to ban gas stoves, and we don't want any of it. So what he's talking about here is an important message that the American public agrees with, and they're tired of feeling oppressed and stifled on issues that used to be just common sense.
Yeah, I think that really crystallizes it. The tyranny of the minority climate change viewpoint taking over and taking all of our lives. So well done, Vivek, on that.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-host Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
It was a day the Packers would remember. From the very beginning, the challenger found himself struggling. Meanwhile, Duck Brand Easy Start packing tape proved itself to be strong.
No,
and
that's a
smooth,
lie.
Handling every...
Thanks, Jonathan. Let's bring another Jonathan. Jonathan Joey, Fox News contributor, Georgia University law professor. Jonathan, this is not a surprise, but the fact that they went late into the night and rushed to do it, and they had a premature release, and then denied knowing anything about it, I thought was noteworthy. What stands out to you?
Well, I did find that statement by the district attorney to be baffling. To say, well, I don't know anything about the clerk's office. If this was a premature publication of the indictment, it's a serious mishap. You'd think she'd be somewhat curious as to how that happened. But the indictment is, as we expected, founded on this broad racketeering claim. You've got 18 individuals who are charged. Willis seems to have charged everything and everyone, is allowing God to sort them out. You look at this indictment, and every call, every tweet, every speech seems to be a separate criminal act that composes this conspiracy. That raises really troubling questions as to the criminalization of the challenges to elections. I've been covering presidential elections a long time. I can't remember how many. But in every single presidential election, we track challenges by Democrats, by Republicans. Some of them are based on strong evidence, some are not. Even in this election, you have people like Mark Elias for the Democratic Party. After these acts, alleged that voting machines in New York were the cause of flipping an election and challenging that election. Was that a crime? Of course it wasn't. It was a challenge. They were looking for judicial review. So it's a very troubling indictment.
Jonathan, they waited 2.5 years to do this. If they had a problem, our question is, why didn't they take this to court 2.5 years ago? Why wait in all 4 of these indictments until a year before the election, knowing these court cases are happening next year, when we'll all be going to the polls in November?
I think that's a fair question. I think that the former president was within his rights to raise it. I think there's support for it. With this indictment, obviously could have been brought long before yesterday. It seemed to have been timed to hit right in the middle of the election, and now we have a pileup. This president is being really pursued, pillar to post, across the country in different jurisdictions. There's going to be a reaction to that. I mean, this is a very troubling thing to watch. The thing about Georgia, though, that I think the Trump team should discount is that this has legs. Because it was brought under the racketeering statute, it's going to be very hard to get an appellate review to knock this out on threshold questions. Racketeering cases are largely fact cases, and the prosecutors argue, let us prove our case, let us bring the evidence together. So the chances of this surviving a review are likely quite high, at least in some form. Now, in the D.C. case, the judge there could cause a similar problem. She could make it difficult for Trump to get to the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court on what I think are major threshold constitutional questions. That is, unlike Georgia, Jack Smith is creating new law, and it's not going to please a lot of these higher courts. In Georgia, this is a state action. Elections fall within their purview. So it's going to be harder to take out a case like this on a threshold challenge.
Sure. Jonathan Turley, we've got 5 more minutes on the clock with you. Jonathan, what we heard on Sunday from Hunter Biden's lawyer, Abby Lowell, who I'm sure you've known in the D.C. area for a very long time, great lawyer. When Hunter Biden would call his dad and put his dad on speakerphone, that was what a loving father would do. And I thought about that question because Peter Doocy asked the president about, hey, when you would get your dad on this, or when you would talk to Hunter on the speakerphone about business, he goes, I never talk about business. Well, now Abby Lowell is admitting that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden talk to his business associates on the speakerphone.
Yeah, I agree with Abby. When my children fleece foreign figures for millions, I always call in and say hello.
Because you're a loving father.
Right, and you have a beach house in Delaware.
The problem here is the moving of the goalposts. And the contrast is, of course, extraordinary, right? Trump is being indicted for everything short of ripping a mattress label off. But yet the Department of Justice seems to be waiting for a virtual confession from the president in order to bring an indictment. It's a very weird contrast. But this is becoming so serious, I think it's going to be harder and harder for the media and the Justice Department to continue to deny this. The president said for years to the public he never spoke to his son about his foreign dealings. Right. Recently, Devin Archer said that was categorically false, that the president knew about their dealings. Other witnesses have said they met with the president at dinners, including one that says he discussed the family dealings. So all of these narratives are collapsing, and then they put up yet another one. Well, the loving father narrative is just not going to do it. The House has now documented at least $20 million going to the Bidens. It's going through a series of accounts, a couple of dozen accounts, that seem designed to hide those transfers.
My head wants to pop now. Do people not remember when Tucker Carlson did that interview with Tony Bobolinsky? And he said probable deniability is what Frank Biden had told him. Or was it Jim Biden? I can't recall. It was one of the brothers, though. So, I mean, come on, everyone. We know that they're jerks. We know they're dirtbags. Can we just go ahead and move along? Oh, gracious. Ajax? Yeah. We have a naughty kitty. Hold on. I'll turn it back on and chase him away.
And all they can say now is, well, can you show a picture of him receiving an envelope of cash or a deposit slip to an account by Joe and Joe Biden? There are witnesses that have been cited that have said that they were told not to refer to Joe Biden directly, not to make any payments directly to him. And why would you set up all these accounts except for that purpose? You know, they're there so that you don't have that type of paper trail.
But in circumstantial matter, does that matter? Circumstantial?
Well, this is a pretty strong case as it is, and yet Merrick Garland just refused to extend the mandate. He appointed a special counsel that flipped the regulation on its head. You know, he picked someone who's literally being looked into by Congress for alleged fixing of the prior investigation, and yet Garland still will not say that he should investigate all of this and get it all out. Instead, he's focusing on Hunter.
Alan Dershowitz said the strategy is to get conviction before the election. He said, I used to tell my students, if you bring a RICO case, it increases your chances of winning a trial and losing an appeal. But he says, if we get a conviction before the election and then it goes to an appeal, that won't happen until after the election. Is this going to help or hurt him if he ends up getting convicted?
Look, I think that this is obviously helping him. The American people don't like to see this. This is what you see in a lot of other countries. You know, the Willis indictment has legs in the sense that it tends to be more iron-plated because these are conventional state charges. It doesn't mean that it's right. When you look at this indictment, it's charging everything, every call, every tweet, every speech. You know, the president's allowed to challenge elections. He's also allowed to be wrong. And there's no clear principle or dividing line of when challenges will now be criminal and when they will be allowed.
And one more question, why 18 co-defendants? What did they do wrong?
I think that, once again, this is a very typical approach in a racketeering case. You charge everyone, and then you pressure a lot of the co-defendants to flip. And that's what I think they hope will happen here.
All right. Jonathan, we have 27 seconds left on the count. We will yield back our time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan. I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Blair Hart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Okay.
Overpriced filler and market.
Never mind. No, it's DVDs. Hold on. This is a long, long episode. I already know it. Let's try to get the shorter ones out of the way before we tackle Steve Dees. That's just... Oof. Come on, computer. You can do it, old reliable. Oodalali, golly, what a day. Come on. There we go. Oh, lordy, I've got a lot of clips. Let's remove the ones we've already watched. Keep things tidy. Don't mess with Zahon. That's what I think every single time I watch a Peter Zahon clip. He's just so fun. But also at the same time, he's no nonsense. And he's just like, I don't care if you believe me or not. This is the way it is. I'm just telling you what the data says. You know, that's pretty much where he is. He wants to stay well, I wouldn't say apolitical. He's very liberal minded, and I'm sure he is a registered Democrat, but I really don't think that all, it doesn't always bleed through, so to say, that, so when I found him, I thought he was a Republican, when he was, on his Disunited Nations tour. So, I mean, he was a strange cat. I'll tell you that. And he had a really good book. Made me stop and go, whoa. Oh, doo doo. Okay. We'll go to the one straight after that. Hmm.
Wow, look at this poll. Chris Christie pulling ahead of Ron DeSantis among New Hampshire voters. Al Lambert is with us this morning. Al Lambert is a DeSantis guy. Can you explain what's going on here?
Look, these polls are going to move around. I mean, look, this is a two-person race. The internal polling shows very clearly that the vast majority of current Trump supporters, 80+%, their second choice is DeSantis. So if he does, it's all going to DeSantis for the most part. That's where this is headed.
Are you pinning your hopes on New Hampshire and Iowa that Trump loses badly there and your guy comes up?
Well, I think certainly DeSantis has a great shot of winning both. I think he wins Iowa certainly, which will change the outcome in New Hampshire. But no, I mean, he's got the resources and the ground game and the infrastructure to take this deep into Super Tuesday and then after Super Tuesday. So another reason why this is a two-person race is he's the only one that has those resources available to do that.
Now, I'm sure you've seen the latest Fox News power rankings. Trump dominates. He's clearly the front runner. DeSantis and Tim Scott are behind, but they are way behind. How did that happen to DeSantis? How did he lose so much ground?
Well, again, this is a people that are DeSantis or Trump. That's where they are. And so when Trump's had all these indictments come down over the past 6 months, the Trump people are people that are trying to decide between the two have got a knee jerked over to Trump because they're upset, and they should be upset about what's happening. So I think that's the way to explain that is those indictments have certainly in the short term helped Trump.
You have a new op-ed, and you're saying the Republicans won't start winning until they start whining. You want to explain that to us? Who is whining?
Well, a lot of people, there's a lot of talking heads that are going on, and there's a lot of complaining about what's happening to Trump. I get it. People are upset. But complaining about it nonstop over the next 14 months is not going to win the election. I mean, what's happening to Trump right now, the die has been cast. He's going to spend the next 14 months in court, in and out of court. His costs, his legal fees, all of that, all the resources are going to be focused on that. It's not going to be focused on running against Joe Biden. This will be a referendum on Trump. If he's the nominee, it will not be a referendum on Biden. I think that's a huge mistake.
Why doesn't your guy come out more forcefully and criticize and go after Trump?
Well, I mean, I think he's going to go after him and has on policy positions such as he didn't build the wall.
Well, also think about it. I don't think we're done with just 4 indictments, do you? I mean, there was a little bit of growling and grumbling today that Katie Hobbs was also going to be pursuing something. So if Katie Hobbs drops another indictment right in the middle of it, I mean, that'll give Trump an excuse to stop in the middle. Let him jet set everywhere. Every single time he's got to go to court, he'll have a rally afterwards. Right there. In either D.C., New York, what's the other one? Georgia? Oh, and the other one's in Florida. So if they drop Arizona in there, he'll be going to some of the biggest states that actually that he needs to garner that support. So how about all 50 states freaking drop indictments on him? Because if they do that, then he'll have a reason to show up into each and every single state. It's not going to change the American people are going to vote for him. Left, just saying. Y'all really miscalculated on this. And when and if Orange Man gets back in, it's going to be really bad what y'all have done, because you will turn him into a tyrant. That's just my take on it. You've pushed him too far. You've gone too far. And what did Rome need when the fall of the Republic happened? They needed a dictator to be able to come in, have emergency powers, take over, and be able to run the entire empire. That's what happened. They installed dictators. They had good dictators and bad dictators, but it wasn't an emperor again. It did transform to where it was into emperors, but that was a few decades before that happened. And that in-between time was awful. Awful. Go look it up. It was beyond what you can even think. And oh, wow. And then the Peloponnesian War. and everything. That thing kept going and going and going. Yeah, let us continue with Stuart Varney and Company.
He didn't dismantle the deep state, so there's those issues. He's not going to go after him on personal stuff. That's not where we're headed. But look, Stuart, I want to just highlight one other thing. Even if Trump were to pull this off and win against Joe Biden, he's got 2 years, and then he's a lame duck. I mean, that's the reality. It'll take him a year with the Republican Senate if he's able to get one to get his people in place to do anything. And then do we really want to look up in 4 years and have 16 people on the stage again, spending hundreds of millions of dollars attacking each other? The power of an incumbent president is really important. If you have incumbency, there's a lot of power there. We need someone that can serve 8 years. DeSantis could serve 8 years. He's the best governor in the country. Why would we pick someone who ultimately can only, after 2 years is done, versus someone that can go 8 years? It'll take that long to dismantle the deep state.
The first debate, GOP debate, is 1 week.
Because, sir,
do you know what Ron
what you would want to do is that you do want to get the Orange Man back in, and you want Orange Man to have a competent vice president that you are confident that will be able to take over for the following 8 years with incumbency, and that the RNC will be able to throw all of their money behind them. That's why we want Trump back in. We need the enforcer to come back in, and then his junior to be able to take over and be competent at doing the job. Now, Kudlow and lots of others, they're showing a lot of interest in Ramaswamy for this position. I think DeSantis has completely blown his chance. If he had waited until 2028 and then ran, I believe he would have been a great president for 8 years. However, he went against Trump. And Trump, if it hadn't been for Trump, he would have never been voted in to begin with, because he didn't have the support. So, also another person that is running that I think is very interesting is Larry Elder. He is a very good conversationalist and a radio host. However, I honestly cannot understand why he would run for president. And he's definitely not running for any type of vice president position. But, it's bizarre for Larry Elder to be running, in my opinion. And then there's Asa Hutchinson. He's already blown his chance when Tucker interviewed him at the Blaze Summit. And then there was Mike Pence. Yeah, may he burn in hell. Just saying. This could have all been avoided. It really could have. It could have been avoided. And we would be looking at, 2028, Mike Pence running for president. No. Couldn't do that. He had to go along with their plans.
Sanders' strategy is going to be in the debate. He's going to come out firing big old cylinders, attacking other people. Well, he's going to be the one under attack. So whether Trump is there or not, the other candidates are likely to fire on him, which he's prepared for. If Trump's there, he'll still be under attack. But either way, he's prepared for a Trump appearance or a non-Trump appearance. And I think he's going to do extremely well. I mean, if you've seen his latest interviews, he understands these issues. He understands what needs to happen. Look, he served in Congress, so he knows how the swamp works up there. He knows how to dismantle this thing, and he can really get it done. What he did in Florida, he said exactly what he did and did what he said. There's no other governor that's done that. We have a candidate that actually gets done what he says he's going to do.
Are you backing DeSantis all the way through, no matter what?
Oh, I'm 100% behind DeSantis. Now, look, I'm not a never Trumper, as you know. Look, I have an America First ETF. The ticker's MAGA. So I like Trump. I'm not a Trump hater. People don't need to understand that. But I've been involved in 4 presidential campaigns, and I can see what's going to happen here. We have our best shot with the DeSantis. If Trump is the nominee, I think it's very likely we lose to Biden. And even if he does pull off, it's going to be a problem from day one, because he's going to be out of there in one term. And I think we're not going to be able to get what we need done in one term.
Okay, in 30 seconds, what is it that you most dislike about Trump?
What's that I took most dislike? Look, I'm frustrated that a lot of, I think, what's going on right now, he could have avoided. I think, for instance, the documents in his home. Why didn't he just return those? That could have avoided the whole thing. Same thing happened with Pence. He gave them back immediately. Biden gave them back immediately, although Biden held them for years. And so, yes, it's unfair what's happening. I totally get it. But a lot of this he could have avoided. And I think there's going to be real problems in Georgia. You've got 18 others under indictment. What do you think that DA's doing? They're going to sit there and say, look, you've got 3 of you guys are going to cut a deal. The rest of you are going to jail. So the first 3 that step forward, I think we're going to start to see people turn. This is going to be a mess. This cannot be a referendum on the court battles for Donald Trump. This has to be a referendum on Biden. And that's why we have to go with a different candidate.
Alan, we hear you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Welcome back to the Dirt Show. Another day, another indictment.
Nope. I'm gonna wait and on that one. I really don't want to go through the breakdown of Alan Dershowitz right now, so I'm sorry, everyone. You're not going to see this one with me. This is WION. Newscast out of
Managing
India.
the loan waiver exchange is critical. With GCPay, you can batch transactions and make paperless payments.
Another American politician is allegedly being targeted by Chinese spies. Emails of John Bacon, a moderate Republican from Nebraska's account, reportedly have been hacked into. Bacon, who serves on the House's Armed Services Committee, has shared the details on his social media accounts. He was informed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation that his emails had been hacked into by Chinese spies, with both personal and campaign messages getting compromised. He also shared that the Chinese Communist Party had access to his accounts for almost about a month. And Bacon said that the hack was a result of a vulnerability in Microsoft software. But these are the same spies who exploited a Microsoft error for a period of a month between middle of May and middle of June. The operation has led to theft of hundreds of thousands of emails from top US government figures. And according to sources, other victims of the hacking campaign include Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, unnamed State Department employees, a human rights advocate, and think tanks. A congressional staffer was also targeted. Microsoft has said that the hackers obtained fast signing keys to create verified customer identities that would sidestep multi-factor authentication. Yawn is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.
I want to start by showing you this image. I hope you want.
Nope. Okay, hold on just a moment, everyone. I need a short break. I will be right back. Not feeling And I'm back. Sorry. Oh, okay. All right. We will go back right back to it. And this is Timcast IRL. He has a lot of interesting people show up on his podcast. He's very influential, and I think that he has a lot to do with the psyop circuit. I don't know exactly how. I don't know if he's exactly willing in it. If not, he's very grudging about it. If he knows, and there's also a possibility that his entire thing could be organic. I used to watch Timcast when Adam was on at the very beginning, and that was a big car wreck. I'm telling you. But I kind of like Adam's replacement, Ian. He's okay, but it kind of doesn't seem the same without Adam, because Adam would give good pushback, but at the same time he was very him and Tim seemed to have a lot of conflict going on. I don't know what was going on there. None of my business.
Well, enjoy this picture. We'll have to open image in a new tab, and then we'll have to shrink it so you can actually see it. Wow, this is there you go. It's very tiny on the screen because you can't actually scroll around or whatever. But there you go. It's Donald Trump, and it says revenge on it. Breaking Trump to appoint special counsel to investigate Biden family corruption if reelected. This is the reason people want to vote for Donald Trump. You want revenge? I'll vote Trump. I'd like revenge. What do you guys think?
I'd like justice. And if that means forgiveness and compassion along with it. Mercy, apparently.
What is that? Depends on if it's Greek or Latin, right?
Yeah,
So
I go with the Greeks on these.
Yeah, let me tell you a story, Ian. Donald Trump said that he would criminally indict Hillary Clinton. He would go after her. She'd be in jail. And then, what was it, 2 days if he got elected? He's like, no, we're not going to do that. It's okay. Donald Trump should have gone after all of these people with criminal charges because they're corrupt, evil individuals. And he didn't. Because he said, we're going to forgive. We're going to be like you, and we're going to forgive everybody. And now they're arresting his lawyers.
I wish he'd said that. He never really talked about forgiveness. He still talked crap
No,
about
he
Hillary.
didn't
Prosecute. He didn't direct the DOJ to prosecute. He didn't make good. He just
Hillary talked crap about him through her. I mean, they all do it.
And then he didn't go after her.
Yeah,
he should have.
because he said you would be in jail, and she wasn't. And she also denied the election too.
Yeah.
To an extreme degree. Yeah. What was it? Was it her campaign or the anti-funded the seal dossier?
It was her campaign.
Her campaign. And spreading the lie that Donald Trump was a Russian spy. Yeah. Stacey Abrams. How come she's not in jail?
Right.
I love that. Brian Kemp is like, the past 3 years, no one's brought any evidence of voter fraud. I'm like, in the past 5 years? It's like, you're excluding Stacey Abrams? What I actually said was, yeah, but you stole the election from Stacey Abrams, you Russian Nazi.
Well, you're allowed to question elections in the United States.
No, you're not.
Well, he's getting prosecuted for doing just that. I mean, that might be one of the things, but it's the Jan 6.
That's not literally it. Georgia's not going after him over January 6th. They're not going after his lawyers for January 6th.
But Georgia's why this whole charade began.
No, Georgia is going after, none of the charges related to January 6th in Georgia. Georgia's no jurisdiction there. They're charging Trump and his lawyers for reaching out to state legislature. One of the acts is that they reached out, lawyers reached out to the legislature and said, you guys should vote on this and choose who you think should actually win based on discrepancy. They said, that's solicitation of violation of oath of office. Not January 6th. They're saying because Donald Trump had lawyers go and make a legal argument that they should take a constitutional path of upholding their absolute legislative power to determine who gets the electors. They said, so that's a violation of oath of office.
Did Stacey Abrams do that? Did Hillary have lawyers go talk to electors? I don't know.
So the Democrats had alternate electors and faithless electors.
You're also just arguing to degrees, not whether or not you're allowed to question elections in the United States. Again, the point is that's why Trump is not allowed to because Trump is being prosecuted and Stacey Abrams has done this and Hillary Clinton has already done it. It's the way Trump. There are ways we can get you going to jail.
Yes, and Jenna Ellis, one of the indicted co-conspirators, was only charged on counts 1 and 2, which is, I think, violating the oath of public office and RICO. They're literally saying because she worked for Trump, she's guilty of conspiracy. That's it. That's it. Now, other people were charged with like solicitation of the violation of the office, specific things, but they're going after her quite literally just because she worked for Donald Trump as a lawyer. So no, you don't get to call a lawyer. And now it looks like the federal government's going to do the same thing. They're going to go after Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and a bunch of these people.
If you guys go out and tell everyone you can't question elections in the United States anymore, you turn us into a totalitarian state.
We did
don't do it.
Exactly
what you got to keep the faith.
I mean, we did.
No, I'm saying if you go out and start telling people you can't do this anymore, you become a hand of the state. You don't want to become that guy that's black pill and tells everyone it's over. You can question elections in the United States.
Yeah.
To do that.
Oh. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah, no, what you're saying is like we can't run around and tell people that you can't question the elections, right?
Right.
Yeah, but
okay, of course, you can question the election, and then if you take any actions in furtherance of your questions, you'll be criminally charged.
Sure, it depends on how, but...
Well, like, you could literally just be the lawyer for Donald Trump and they'll charge you with conspiracy.
Yeah, but I think my theory or my hypothesis, if he hadn't told people to go to the Capitol on Jan 6th, none of this would be happening right now.
And peacefully protest? That's the first
it's literally, many other groups and organizations did that. Worse. Like, I'm not saying it was right, but I'm also saying there's other organizations and groups that did that also at the Capitol. Like, they burnt down a church.
Or they tried to burn down a church.
They set fire.
Where's the RICO charges for anything? That was organized and planned.
They're all let off of all charges. We still have guys that are still in jail from January 6th that were at, just to say, the hot dog cart across the street. I mean, come on. There's got to be a point where everybody on both sides is like, all right, this is nuts, right? Or not?
No,
I think so.
No, I hope so. There's not. I mean, that's why I'm into pardons. I think if you don't care, if you really don't find some kind of like spiritual fulfillment in finding your enemies like forgiven, if you don't get that, then think of it as a hostage negotiation. And you want those Jan 6 prisoners out, so you pardon them, and then you want Hunter Biden pardoned as the hostage.
Prisoner exchange.
Yeah, think of it as a prisoner exchange. That's why you issue mass pardons. And maybe society will freak out, maybe it won't. Maybe it has to come from the top, maybe it has to come from the people first. I don't know. But yeah,
I kind of think of it more like there's a guy running around setting fires, and Ian is like, if you please promise not to do it again, we won't put you in jail. It's like, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's like saying I'm not gonna put you in jail for all those fires you started if you do it.
No living being should ever eat processed food for every single meal of their life. Good.
Do it again.
again, you're done. But we're moving forward. Let's not anyone light any more of those. That's kind of the mentality. With the hope that they won't. And then what happens when they do? Well, that's a loaded question. If they do, then you have to put them in prison. You can't just keep, you can't keep playing the game. Got it. I don't know. It's wild to me. That's all. Well, what's the next step? I mean, we've got a couple months away. We got maybe, I don't know, 7 months until we start going to primaries. I think we got to record 1 million to 1 because we need to become a cultural center. That's a song. We need people loving it. The really like it's the best song. It's your best song so far, and it's just the beginning. So full disclosure, I just started following your music. No, love it. Thank you. I agree. It's great. I don't believe it's that important. I believe building culture is important because laws are only enforced on cultural grounds. Confidence is everything. Yeah. If people didn't have confidence in the dollar, nobody would take the dollar, which is why the U.S. gives dollars to countries all over the world for garbage nonsense. And that's why I say that voting Republican is good because you need actions within the government to alter policy and things like that. But for the most part, what's going to change this is building culture. Yeah. Rich men north of Richmond, the corporate press is attacking it.
Other far right wing.
Yeah, industry plant, fake, blah blah blah.
He's the most genuine guy.
Just a video of a guy saying, I don't even,
that's the best thing for it, though.
But who cares if it's an industry? Like maybe this guy got signed a long time ago. I said we're gonna put a music video and I have to promote. I'm like, okay, it's a good song.
Yeah, the left, the people that are attacking it are the best thing for its credibility.
Oh yeah,
because the people that are attacking it are doing exactly what he says they're doing. It's the champagne social, the idea of the champagne socialists, the rich urban people, and those are the people that while they talk a good game about the working man, when a working man, or an ostensibly not wealthy, not cosmopolitan person is sitting there singing a song about the struggles that they're noticing in their lives, all they do is dump all over him, call all kinds of names, and the lyrics really do tap into things that are on a lot of people's minds. But the people on the left, I mean, they feel like it's attacking them, and they're the ones that are making it about them because it doesn't specify a side, left or a side. Yeah, obviously there's a whole lot of insecurity when it comes to the remark about Epstein Island and the line about Epstein Island and stuff. But it's not particularly right leaning. In policy, but it is culturally right, and that's why cultural leftists really hate it. And I enjoy reading people that hate on it because
because it's like the people that like you say something about, but you didn't mention them by name, but they're guilty, so they're like, are you talking about me?
Yeah, they do.
So it's totally about you. So, I'm a big fan of it. I thought the song was very simple. If you haven't heard it yet, north of Richmond. It's first chorus, pretty basic. The guy's performance is out of control. We need that. We need heart-shattering sound to shake people out of this morose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it speaks to the mistrust of the average, of the establishment by the average person, and I think that the fact that it resonated with so many people and went viral so fast, I think that's something that really has worried the establishment. And Rolling Stone crapping on a protest
crap on everybody.
Well, I mean, they didn't always. A protest song, that's supposed to be something that Rolling Stone would get behind. It's protesting against the government, and like, in the 60s, that would have been, or the 70s, that would have been right up Rolling Stone's alley. They'd have been right there cheering them on, but they weren't because they're the establishment. Right, they're the propaganda arm.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over.
So, let's see. There's one more. To order Trump to surrender and be jailed. Democrats and neo-Marxists staging a revolution. Okay, I'll watch one more with you guys, and then I'm going to call it my night. I've got to get to bed. What are these crazy commercials?
Donald Trump and his 18 co-conspirators, the Democrats are calling them, must surrender in 9 days to the Fulton County Jail. There will be no special treatment. Trump will receive a mugshot and be held in a disgusting jail that is so bad, leftists are even bringing it up right now, that the conditions are horrifying and that some people have actually died there.
Yeah, no kidding. I've had a few friends that have told me about Fulton County. It's not fun. I think the only place that might be worse is Etowah County, Alabama. That's probably the only prison that might be worse than Fulton County, next to what I've heard about the DC gulags. So, I really hope that he's able to get out immediately, because you're asking a elderly man, senior citizen, go into a jail that is full of mold and mildew, possibly brown recluse spiders like it is here. What else? Just the food alone is going to be is going to make him sick. Just the food alone, I have said this for many years, that one day that I hope that all of those politicians actually put the real money into those fancy dancy prisons, because one day they will be sitting in there, and if they weren't willing to invest then, Well, they're going to be kind of uncomfortable now, ain't they?
They want Donald Trump and, I mean, his chief of staff, his lawyers, to surrender themselves to this facility. And this is this is what we're waiting for. And I have a question. My question is, what happens if Donald Trump does not surrender? Alongside this, Ron DeSantis has come out and said it's partly Trump's own fault. And you know what? Ron DeSantis is right. Donald Trump could have fired many of these people. Donald Trump could have gone after Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump didn't want to fire certain intelligence agency individuals because he was concerned of political backlash. He didn't want to go after Hillary Clinton because he was concerned about political backlash. And he opened the door. He said, don't worry, go do your thing. And now they are gutting and ripping apart this country to go after him. So the question is this. With the news about Ron DeSantis saying that Trump shares some of the blame here, Ron DeSantis is explicitly stating the charges against Trump are unjust, they're wrong, that Donald Trump could have done something to stop it by weeding out the Soros prosecutors. So here's my question for Ron DeSantis. If Donald Trump seeks safe harbor in Florida, refusing to surrender, will you extradite? Or will you allow federal forces under the Biden administration to seek to remove Donald Trump and extradite? This is unprecedented. I have no idea what happens. Maybe many of you do, but my question is this. Donald Trump goes to Mar-a-Lago. He publicly announces that he will not surrender to false charges. Many of his former staff and his lawyers, co-conspirators, they say the same thing. These are fake charges, and we refuse to abide by these demands. Already, Mark Meadows has filed to have the case moved to a federal court so that he can argue the supremacy clause and basically quash the whole thing. So why would they travel to Georgia to surrender to charges that they think are fake? Well, I don't know what's going to happen. I gotta say, I think the most likely scenario is that Donald Trump and all the defendants just surrender. But it got me thinking. If Donald Trump stays in Florida, what happens if he just says no? Georgia's a red state, supposedly, but, kind of shifts blue, or it's shifting blue. And so I wonder how this will play out. I don't have the answers. Donald Trump travels only to red states from now on, avoiding connections in blue states, or flies private, only between red states. Red states refuse to extradite. Blue states agree to extradite. It wouldn't even be so simple. Some red states would absolutely extradite. Would any? I don't know. I don't know. This is the news. Trump is expected to be booked at Fulton County Jail. Amazing. Former President Donald Trump is expected to surrender at the Fulton County Jail, the local sheriff said Tuesday in a statement, along with the other 18 co-defendants charged on Monday in the Georgia 2020 election subversion case. Trump, who was charged with 13 counts, including racketeering, has not publicly indicated when he intends to surrender ahead of the August 25th deadline imposed by Fulton County DA Fannie Willis. The statement from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office addressed the key question of whether the former president would be arrested and processed as a criminal defendant. Quote, at this point, based on guidance received from the district attorney's office and presiding judge, it is expected that all 19 defendants named in the indictment will be booked at the Rice Street Jail, the statement said. Keep in mind, defendants can turn themselves in at any time. The jail is open 24/7. Also, due to the unprecedented nature of this case, some circumstances may change with little to no warning. Most defendants charged in Fulton County are typically booked at the Fulton County Jail. Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labat previously suggested he wants to treat the defendants charged in the Trump election subversion case the same as any other defendant would be treated.
Sheriff Pat.
Unless someone tells me differently, we will be following normal practices. Doesn't matter your status, we will have mugshots ready for you. That's impossible. Donald Trump has Secret Service protection. Some have suggested if Donald Trump does not submit to charges, the Secret Service will be obligated to apprehend and bring him in. I do not believe
I have wondered that. And the great and one person that I think that actually could answer this for us is Dan Bongino because of his previous work in Secret Service and NYPD and whatnot. I think that it would be very incumbent upon Dan Bongino to come forward and say what's the standard operating procedure for this, even though we know that there isn't one. I mean, they had to have a contingency plan for Nixon, and they made it then, and they always write these freaking manuals. And if it is exactly like Wally. Everybody, the government, the military, they both work the same way. They have these freaking manuals, and if you're able to find the manual, great. You will be able to have your little checklist. It is exactly like Wally when the pilot, he received the plant from Eve and Wally and everything, and it said, is the plant still living? And he said yes, and he was like, watch this video, kind of shit. Well, that's exactly what standard operating procedure within the bureaucracy and the administration is. Not all of those are for they make it very difficult in order for you to be able to find those PDFs or those manuals, so to say. They don't make them common knowledge, and a lot of civilians, they will be going throughout life and not even know what they won't even know that there is a freaking regulation for, I don't know, there's a regulation for your stream, and that you can't block your stream or something for the EPA because they control the waterways or the canals and whatnot. So there is that, but the EPA, they have regulations. The FDA, they have regulations. The CDC, all of those alphabets, they have regulations. And they also, for all of those regulations, they have broken them down to where, they've war gamed it out to where, if this happens, you go and pull this folder off of the shelf and you follow the checklist of what you're supposed to do. This is for the USDA. This is for the FCC, the FTC, all of them. So, that's one thing that I don't understand. And, I've never been able to find the Secret Service's particular manual, So this is something that I think that Dan Bongino should actually put out there and, shine a little light on it because, he's able to. He's outside of the statute of limitations of where he's got to be quiet. His NDA has run out. And also, I really want him to talk about his experience with the Obamas when he was on his protection detail. I want to know if there was some shady shit that he is covering up by not talking about when he worked as Obama's protector. I really think that for the American people's peace of mind, that it would be a story that he's obligated to tell, just for the American public's peace of mind.
That's outside the jurisdiction of the Secret Service to arrest the president himself. But I don't know. I could be wrong. Is it a sheer will not have to negotiate with Secret Service and Trump's attorneys on the logistics of Trump's surrender? Defendants who are not immediately arrested upon indictment, as was the case for Trump and his associates, usually negotiate bond if applicable, as well as other terms of release with the district attorney's office. Rudy Giuliani, Trump's former lawyer, who was also charged with the case, said Tuesday on WABC Talk Radio that he would pick a day next week to surrender to authorities, adding, "There has to be bail, I imagine. Kind of silly for me to have bail. I mean, I showed up there voluntarily and testified." The 41-count indictment unsealed Monday night lays out a sweeping investigation led by Willis into some of the most egregious efforts by Trump's allies to meddle in the 2020 election, blah, blah, we get it. And this is the big question. The question of whether or not we accelerate, escalate, or whether or not Trump simply surrenders to all of this. DeSantis says Trump shares blame for legal troubles because he had 3 years to fire FBI Chief Christopher Wray, let Hillary Clinton off the hook, and failed to fire Soros-backed prosecutors. A bold statement, Ron DeSantis. A bold statement. I like Ron DeSantis. I really do. I just think he's running a bad campaign. He can do better. He's got big things up. But I said this with the federal indictments. I said this with the New York indictments. Donald Trump could go to Florida, and Ron DeSantis could earn massive public support from Trump supporters and from Trump himself. If Ron DeSantis comes out right now and says, Donald J. Trump lives in Florida at Mar-a-Lago, and if he is at home in Mar-a-Lago, I will not have state police or law enforcement seek to apprehend and extradite him. These charges are trumped up. These charges are political, and we will not play a role, nor will I allow any law enforcement to enter Florida territory for the purpose of extraditing Donald Trump.
Yeah, but he turned squish there.
Well, here's the play, Donald Trump. Put Ron DeSantis to the test. You go to Florida, and you say, let's say you, Ron DeSantis, and there's the question, will Ron DeSantis simply say, no, I'm sorry, Donald, I can't get involved in this conflict with Georgia. They're a neighboring state to the north, and so we're going to have no choice but to have you arrested due to our agreements with Georgia. You will be arrested. You will be driven to the jail where you will sit in a jail cell. This is unprecedented stuff. The conversation around civil war has been up and up. And oh boy, everybody's got me on their minds. I have been trending since yesterday. It's funny though, they say I'm trending, but I'm not really trending. It's like in this sphere I am. I'd love to be trending nationwide or worldwide. It's rarely. It happened a few times, but rarely. But everyone in this space is asking the question about whether or not I am correct in my assessment about civil war. Well, look, I mean, it's not, I didn't make this up, okay? It was that Princeton professor who said you're in a cold civil war. And it's an unoriginal idea coming from me. I just happen to say it a lot because I agree with many of these people. But we can defer to Stephen Marsh, smart guy. I had a great conversation with him. He's more of a liberal, multicultural democracy guy. He's Canadian, by the way. And he says we are in civil strife. Civil strife is the fear that occurs just before civil war. And I think he is 100% correct. That is to say, bleeding Kansas. Bleeding Kansas was a 7-year period that happened just before the American Civil War, where people were killing each other in Kansas over whether or not Kansas would become a slave or a free state. Ultimately, as the conflict escalated, you entered nationwide conflict with the start of the Civil War. But most people don't think of bleeding Kansas as the start of the Civil War, but bleeding Kansas is 100% the Civil War period. Semantics, whatever. Call it whatever you want. I don't know. I think that depending on what happens next determines whether or not history will write about the communist revolution, the neo-Marxist revolution in the United States, the rise of the military dictatorship. This could go the way of the Spanish Civil War. It could go the way of Weimar Germany. It could go the way of the Bolshevik Revolution. It could go the way of the American Civil War. I honestly have no idea what happens. I can tell you this. This next week is critical in determining where we go. Think about it this way. Right now, leftist neo-Marxist forces are demanding that leadership in the MAGA faction, whatever we call it, surrender without dispute, without conflict. Surrender. Literal. Surrender. Lay down. Give up. It's over. Now, of course, Trump and the 18 other defendants may say this is but a battle in a legal war of the whole civil war, and so we will, to keep tensions calm. But that's critical. What Trump says, I refuse to surrender. Give me liberty or give me death or something like this. Trump's refusal to surrender will crank the dial up past 11. That's all I can say. I mean, think about the ramifications of Trump and any of these co-defendants not surrendering. Now, there's a few of the defendants that are local election officials. They're not the most prominent individuals, but you have the chief of staff to the president that they're trying to bring in to surrender. Let me make this as clear as I can.
All right, I have a point. I have a really big fear that I have a really big fear that if Donald Trump is jailed, that America is going to be in a position like South Africa was when Nelson Mandela was made president in 1992 to 94, and how many people died because Nelson Mandela had went to jail. And I'm terrified that this is going to happen. Yeah, so it's because South Africa, they went through so much then. I think it was the night before yesterday or yesterday that on the news and Why It Matters that Sarah Gonzalez had a guest called Jocko Bullions, and he is a South African immigrant, and he immigrated here the legal way. He's very much about legal immigration. He is against sex trafficking. He devotes all of his time and energy to fighting child trafficking. He's really close with Tim Ballard, the Sound of Freedom character, except the real one. Jaco Booyens he's also the host of the Blaze podcast called The Bottom Line. He runs in with The Bottom Line, though, unless it's a particular guest that I'm very interested, I don't tune into his podcast as much because, well, he kind of preaches a little bit. He's a little too preachy for me during his own podcast, but he's fine as a guest on other people's show. But when it comes to his podcast, it's just, it's too long for me to keep going over old rhetoric. Though I have nothing against Christianity. It's just that I would prefer to keep it to myself and a solo thing in my own journey of religion. So, there is that. I mean, I know there is that, go forth and preach the good word and everything. However, there are countries out there that literally behead you for praying. And, not that, if I don't think that we are in the days of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Right? Even though Christians are being persecuted, as are the Catholics and other Protestant religions and whatnot. I know this, and I realize it. And I see the huge divide. And what does a person do when they are sitting in the middle of that? And you are sitting and observing the good side, the bad side, and all sides. And it gets harder and harder every single day because there's more heartbreaking things. And then there's more and more evil things. And this is one of the reasons that I completely stopped having cable television altogether. And this is how I gather my news. You're seeing this. So, I gather my news from a huge source. I mean, I have a day where I watch only MSNBC or CNN or WION, WION. And then there's another day where I just go through all of the podcasts. Like, for example, Steve Deace and Glenn Beck, which that was interesting about Glenn Beck being yanked from Apple. Just what? I mean, it's coming. is coming. The censorship is going to get even harder. It's going to be a boot on the face. Forever. Orwell. And then, there are other days where I will binge on Alex Jones and American Journal and War Room. And then I'll hop over on those days, when I have the InfoWars day, I will jump over to Lindell TV, and I'll jump over to Real American's Voice for a little bit, and I will peruse and skim what's being said, but I don't know all of the personalities. Same with Newsmax. I've never sat and watched OAN. All of those female anchors, they look like plastic Barbies to me, so that's why I never tuned into any of those. But I've seen a few reports, and it's just like, yeah, I just don't care for this network. I can see why Trump is, he finds it appealing with all of the blondes and everything, though. And then there's, then some days I'll get a bug up my butt, and it'll be like, I just want to watch movies for a few days, and I'll watch like 10 to 15 movies on times 2 here on free YouTube and everything. I never pay a dime for anything at all. Not one red cent goes to any of these yazoos whatsoever. If you can't find your information for free, they are patriots. Patriots. Yeah, their theme is patriotism, but they're using it to sell you something. Remember, Fezzik, anyone telling you that that something is too good, they are just trying to sell you something. It was Fezzik's father in The Princess Bride. The book, not the movie. Life is pain, Highness. Anyone else telling you differently is trying to sell something. Wesley said it in the movie. So, beware of the ROUSSs, everyone. They're out there. And they're called politicians.
I don't know what will happen. I don't know what you call the period we're in. But I can say that neo-Marxist forces are seeking to arrest the former presidential administration. We're beyond the president having his political rival arrested. And we are now at the point where neo-Marxist forces seek the surrender of the previous administration. That's right, Trump's a lawyer, lawyers, his former chief of staff, and an attorney for the State Department. What was it, the acting attorney general? Let me make sure I get this, I have this correct here. That's Jeffrey Clark. I believe Jeffrey Clark, and I'm going to double check here just to make sure I have this.
Yeah, why didn't Bill Barr get pulled into it?
Neo-Marxist forces in Georgia.
Or Matthew Whitaker.
Of a presidential administration. And the front runner against Joe Biden. Call it whatever you want. Whatever. Fine, I don't care. Civil war? Maybe not. Maybe not civil war if they all just bow their heads and say, we're sorry. Will Donald Trump and these lawyers hang their heads in shame, be placed in handcuffs, trotted into a jail cell where they are looked in the eyes and said, you lose. You have no power here. Goodbye. Maybe they'll give him bail. They won't.
Man, if they do that to Rudy Giuliani, I really think that he just might die within a couple of weeks. Rudy can't take that. Not only that, there might be some people that he put in jail from New York in the Atlanta pen. So, is there a possibility for anybody to do any cross-referencing there? Because Rudy might be in danger. Who else? Jenna Ellis? Well, I really don't think that she'll be fine. She's a healthy young woman. She'll be fine. She might get a cold, but that's about it. But Rudy and Donald, I don't know. The food alone just might make them very sick. Because, they're not used to eating processed food. They both have been living very wealthy lives. They get the best of everything. They get organic, non-GMO food that's not processed and it's made from scratch. What can we do? You know, that alone should be considered a breaking of Donald Trump's Eighth Amendment rights, cruel and unusual punishment as a countersuit. But what lawyers even going to take those cases? I mean, can any of the lawyers that he has, or will they even be considered to be able to defend him? You know, will they be tacked on to this RICO? Who knows? But that lady in Atlanta, she don't joke. She don't. I mean, you should see what she gives everybody for marijuana.
Already arguments have been made that Donald Trump has violated the terms of bail in the federal case against him by
If you're white,
by
that
posting on
is.
Truth Social, he is intimidating witnesses and therefore should be remanded. In fact, the judge in that case has a quote where she laments the fact that Donald Trump remains free. So, will Donald Trump surrender? I think it's entirely possible that Trump gets remanded in a place like Georgia. These people are zealous, but that is the question. Would Ron DeSantis or any other Republican defend the freedom of these individuals and refuse them to be jailed and extradited? I mean, if Republicans like DeSantis, McCarthy, and any other member of Congress, if they're coming out saying this is a political attack and the charges are BS, why would we expect Trump or anyone to surrender? But you know what? I think they will. I think they will because perhaps Mike Cernovich is correct about this. I give you his tweets. Mike Cernovich says, my only disagreement with Tim Cast's assessment of it being a civil war is that we imply two sides fighting. We are instead in the pre-genocide phase of U.S. history. Conservatives and Trump supporters are depersonalized and rounded up. This is from Genocide Watch. Okay. What does his post from Genocide Watch say? 1. Classification. Yes, this meme has gone around quite a bit. And it was going around a few years ago. So let's break down. Classification. Identifying the group of people for whom you want to remove. Yes, maggots, they call them. Trump supporters, Trumpians. Okay. Symbolization. What does that mean? The MAGA symbol, Trump's hair, the red hat. There it is. An easy way to determine who they are. Discrimination. Well, of course. People have been fired from their jobs. They have been banned off social media. Dehumanization. Oh yeah, we already mentioned it. The maggots. Organization. You're talking about the far left groups that have formed groups like Rose City Antifa and other Antifa factions that have engaged in widespread violence, vandalism, and even murder in some instances, and have faced almost no accountability. Polarization, that one's obvious. Preparation, call whatever you want. Persecution, extermination, everything. You could probably apply something like this to a lot of different groups or a lot of different people. So I don't know if it's true or whatever. And symbolism. They're just saying, these could be what's happening right now. And you can apply this stuff to a lot of people, I suppose. But based on how the government is handling things, I'd certainly say it's not Antifa who's being persecuted, but polarization is happening right before our eyes. And this tweet from Hans Monk, I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, says, these messages are from the time period while Trump was president. Meanwhile, Durham wasn't even allowed to see and didn't want to see thousands of messages exchanged among Hillary Clinton's Russiagate operatives. Calling this banner public stuff is an insult to banana republics. Marina Medvin says, feds have Trump's DMs, even deleted ones, and unsent drafted tweets. That's right. The Democratic regime, I don't even call it the Democrat, that's so silly. But I guess you can call North Korea the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, whatever it is they call it. They have Donald Trump's private messages that he sent on Twitter. Apparently some of them are very stupid, like I guess there's a picture of a taco salad or something like that. But hold on. How do the feds have Donald Trump's communications? That's amazing. And to be honest, it's partly Trump's fault. He allowed this festering mold to grow under his own presidency. And now they're going to excise him.
I'll be right
They
back.
have his private messages. Oh boy. Nothing is simple. Where does this go, my friends, is the ultimate question. Seeing all of this happen, seeing that an excellent point made by Hans, Durham didn't look at Hillary Clinton's communications. That's incredible. The Russiagate hoax. What about Ukraine? Nothing. Mike Cernovich pointed out the other day that the Republicans had a comparable majority in the House that Nancy Pelosi did. And Nancy Pelosi was able to wage war on Donald Trump and his supporters. The Republicans right now are doing nothing. And a lot of people said this last night. We talked about it against Ireland. They said, Kevin McCarthy's got no balls. I said, are you kidding? That dude's got ironclad testicles, balls of steel. But look into the eyes of Trump supporters and conservatives and Republicans and say, I'm fighting for you. And then turn around with a gigantic, demonic grin laughing all the way back to his uniparty hangout where he's like, don't worry, those morons believe every word. So herein lies the question. Perhaps it is not a civil war. Perhaps Cernovich is correct. But I brought this point up before. Civil war implies two factions of fighting, two or more factions. And that's not what we have. But I must disagree with Mike Cernovich. I must disagree. Well, let's have a conversation, Mike. I think you're a really, really smart guy, and you are correct about so much of this. My disagreement is superficial. He says that his disagreement with me is that it's not a civil war because two sides are fighting. It would imply two or more sides are fighting. The reason I disagree with you is because the actions being taken by the government right now could lead to the instability of rising factions around the country. I think the border plays a large role in this. It is not simple to say civil war means that Trumpian factions fight with neo-Marxist factions. No. There could be a group of people in Arizona who don't care at all about Donald Trump, only care about the border. They're growing angry that traffickers are bringing children and drugs over the border. They can't seem to get any action done. So they form a militarized faction. Some of these factions already exist. There were stories about the Minutemen, I think they called themselves years ago. What happens when this faction comes up, forms border barriers and border checkpoints, and starts enforcing the law as they see fit to their community, thinking that Joe Biden has abandoned them completely? The federal government then does what? Tries to arrest them? What happens when these people say, we don't recognize your failed authority, you have no jurisdiction here? Sure, the feds can then sweep in with federal law enforcement and massive showing of force, Waco or otherwise. But the issue is, what happens when this pops up all over the country? We've already seen Chaz. We've already seen the George Floyd Autonomous Zone. There have already been instances where people have succeeded in separating themselves from local law enforcement. Question. Does it stop there? Perhaps it does. I don't know what the future holds. I'm not saying it. However, as Phil Labonte likes to say, where's the off-ramp? And I agree with him. There's no off-ramp. There are these people that post screenshots of my tweets where I said civil war, civil war, civil war. I don't know if the intention there is to insult me for saying it. Perhaps it is, to mock me for saying it. Funny thing is, all they're doing is proving that I was correct in my assessment of escalation. When I say, in 2019, that the things they're doing are leading towards civil war. Then in 2020, you get the mass rioting. And I say, this is leading to civil war. Perhaps we're already in civil war period. And then January 6th happened, and I loved this one. I love this one. Ryan Long came on the show, and it was kind of an ambush. I like Ryan, he's a friend. But right when we started the show, he goes, "What's up with the Civil War talk, Tim? Last time I was here, you freaked out because you were talking about all this stuff happening. And where's the Civil War?" And then I just said, stone-faced, on January 6th, 800 Trump supporters stormed their way up the stairs of the Capitol building, fighting with police and tearing down barricades. The police shot and killed a veteran, Ashley Babbitt. On the other side of the building, police opened the doors, allowing several people into the Capitol. This disrupted the Electoral College vote count. Yeah, so where is it? I don't know. Perhaps that was a large component of it. I find it absolutely hilarious that the liberals and leftists would seek to insult me for having said civil war was coming, whether we were on a path towards one or we were in a full civil war. And then for the entirety of 2021, they screamed that Donald Trump tried to lead a coup against the United States, an insurrection. They actually used insurrection provisions in the Constitution to strip politicians of their right to hold office. Wait, Griffin, read that story. And now, as if their brains are suffering intense amnesia, they forget all of these things already happened. So let me break it down for you, my friends. Where are we now? In the lead up to Donald Trump's election, there were several extreme instances of violence, people being beaten in the street. In one instance, a man tried to take the gun from a police officer with the intention of killing Donald Trump. Remember that story? Wow, crazy. But a lot of people say, hey, look, man, RFK, JFK, well, politically they've been assassinated before. Okay, so maybe it's not civil war. Right, but we're escalating towards one. After Donald Trump is elected, Hillary Clinton, actually, I'm sorry, during the campaign for Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton accuses Trump of secretly working for Russia. Her campaign funds the Steele dossier. Allegations are made that Donald Trump was a Soviet agent. I'm not saying Russian, Soviet. Jonathan Chait goes on MSNBC, and there's a possibility that Trump has been working for Russia since the 80s. Yeah, during the Soviet Union. Interesting. This leads to Trump's administration being cuffed, weighted down with the investigation. Trump says he can't fire people because there's special counsel investigating him as to whether or not he's a Soviet spy secretly trying to destroy this country. In the meantime, street violence is erupting all across the U.S. At one point, a man named Aaron Daniels is shot twice in the chest and killed. We also have the instance during the Summer of Love, where a man in Austin driving an Uber is approached by an extremist with a rifle at low ready, who he should have killed, and is now in prison. Those are not the only instances of death that occurred. You had the Chaz, where far-left extremists put an autonomous zone. And did you forget the point at which the security forces of the autonomous zone opened fire on a white SUV, unloading hundreds of rounds over the span of a few minutes, killing a couple teenagers. There's also the George Floyd autonomous zone. None of these are to imply that we are in an active civil war, just that it's entirely possible and the escalation is happening right before us. I think perhaps Stephen Marsh is correct when he says civil strife. Okay, where are we now? An election is held. There's widespread accusations of fraud. One faction says no, one faction says yes. It doesn't matter what you think is true. People tell me I'm wrong, that's fine. Maybe I'm wrong. Others say it's a bunch of conspiracy theory nonsense. Some say it's true and the left is trying to hide it and cover it up. Doesn't matter. The fact is, there are two prevailing worldviews. The overwhelming majority of Republicans believe the election was stolen and Joe Biden is illegitimate. The overwhelming majority of Democrats believe that Donald Trump stole the election and his presidency was illegitimate, thus justifying all of the actions they took and the actions they're taking now. Where are we at today? Perhaps we'll avert a civil war if Donald Trump whimpers, bows his head, and crawls into the Fulton County Jail crying, saying, I guess I lost. Maybe Donald Trump will just give up and surrender. Maybe Jenna Ellis and Mark Meadows will just quiver and whimper as they're brought into a jail cell that the left laments as being
overpriced filler and marketing hype don't improve supplements. So stop paying for them. With bulksupplements.com,
laments as being despicable, decrepit.
You know, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think some of them it wouldn't hurt for a few of them to spend an overnight in. Such as Miss Sydney, and Mr. Meadows, and Miss Ellis. Because I think that their superiority has disconnected them from what real life really is. And they need to have more empathy and more not just more empathy. They need to have more mercy within themselves, and being able to understand their constituents or their clients better. Now, Miss Powell, the things that she got mixed up with, that's the lady that's gonna roll.
A crypt where people die. Maybe they'll man Trump, maybe they won't. I don't know. All of this is happening right before your eyes. It's never happened before in American history. So call it whatever you want. I don't care. But here's what I do think. Why the mockery from the left over the idea of civil war now? Why are there even some conservatives saying it's irresponsible for me to say, despite the fact that many others have been saying it before me, that many others have been calling out in louder ways? Well, I'll tell you two things. Many of these conservatives, they're pro-DeSantis, despise and fear the idea of saying civil war only now, despite the fact I've been saying this for years, because they know they've lost, and they're hoping they can avoid the genocide phase. So they're going to come out and say, no, calm down, everyone, just submit. I am not saying there should be violence, quite the opposite. I'm saying that there should be legal challenges in every possible way, and that Donald Trump should win the presidency, or maybe Vivek or something, or Ron DeSantis, and then we should clean up the corruption. That's the most appropriate path to victory. The Democrats are engaging in the actions they're engaging in because they're losing and they're terrified. Seriously. You look at Target, their sales collapse because of Pride merchandise, that's what I'll cover later. You have Sound of Freedom surpassing Indiana Jones, you have Bud Light's collapse. Yeah, we're winning this one. And that's why they're engaging in serious acts of violence. But you have Democrats and leftists laughing and mocking the idea of civil war. Why? Because they're hoping that they can accelerate everything, that they can arrest their political opponents without any kind of opposition. That's why they say, no, what a stupid idiot. Haha, mock the idiot. It's a powerful technique. Try and ridicule someone. I'm sorry to say, I don't care what you think. To the crackpots, the people who are trying to create some kind of neo-Marxist revolution, your opinions mean nothing to me. And these anti-Trump neocons, sorry, your opinions mean nothing to me as well. I'm going to say what I think. There are a lot of people say, Tim, you shouldn't say that anyway, even if you think it's true. And I'm like, whatever, man. There are a lot of personalities who supported Donald Trump and turned on him because they fear going to prison. Because because they celebrated his election fraud claims. They celebrated January 6th. They encouraged people to go to D.C. and now they think they're going to get arrested next. I think it's probably true that they're arrested next. Some people have said, well, eventually that's you, Tim. Eventually you get arrested, dude. If it escalates to the point of true civil conflict, ain't nobody safe for nothing. They'll make up charges against anybody just by whatever they want. Never lies the point.
Show me the
I'm gonna be
man
saying,
and I'll
happen.
find the
I don't
crime.
fear anything. It's happening. Whatever. It is what it is. We must have peaceful, nonviolent civil disobedience. We must have ballot harvesting, ballot chasing. People must register more people to vote. One of the most important things I've heard is
I
we must encourage
wouldn't
everyone
go
who
that
to sign
far,
up
no.
for Twitter to become the platform. Don't make it political. Don't tell them to support Trump or the actual most brilliant thing I've heard. People have to ask me, how do I get people to understand it? And it's simple. You say, hey, you should sign up for Twitter. Because I'm on there, I post stuff. You'll hear a lot. And they'll say, well, how did you, what's going on with Trump? And I'll be like, look, you'll hear from the people calling him out like right away when they post. You should do it. Sign up. This actually exposes them to a wide array of information. I don't know where we're going, my friends. I can only tell you where we're at. And the big question I have for all of you in comments below. Should Trump surrender? What if Trump doesn't surrender? What if he does? What if he surrenders and the judge and the DA say, hey, Trump should be remanded to custody and not allowed to leave because he will flee? The Democrat DA, the special prosecutor Jack Smith, already argued Trump is a flight risk. He is a billionaire with properties all over the world and several jets and helicopters. He can just get on a plane and fly away, and you can't stop him. Any other fugitive goes to the airport, they'll know he's there, and they'll apprehend you. Donald Trump, he can just walk on his plane. There's nothing you can do about it. He can say, I'm getting on a plane to Georgia, and then afterwards I'm going to fly back to Bedminster or Mar-a-Lago, and they say, okay. And then once the plane is in the air, Trump can say, divert to El Salvador. They can't stop him. So what if they say, now that Trump has surrendered, we will not release him? I wouldn't put it past him. I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot more to talk about. Next time it's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.
Yep. All right. Well. So, another crazy day. And more to get to later. So, I will call it a night and get on to making dinner for my family. So if you like this, I hope you like, subscribe, and share for my algorithm. And I will see you next time on Analyzing the News.